Welcome, everyone. Let's call our meeting to order. Please rise to the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Any agenda changes or additions or corrections?
The septic system, would that be old business? We talked about that before.
You're saying you want to change it from new business to old business?
Yeah, that's it, unless it's.
We haven't done any kind of,
I felt like we just received a report, but we really haven't done any.
Well, we talked about it last year and we talked about.
Oh, well. This is a brand new draft and everything. I think it's still new business.
All right.
Anything else? Public comment. Welcome, everybody, to our planning commission meeting. Is there anybody who'd like to make some comments? All good? Okay. Approval of our minutes of April 23rd, 2026. Any additions or
Motion to approve.
okay, we have a motion to approve.
second,
We have a second. Any further discussion? Being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Well, let's get right into our current business. The master plan update, that draft that we've all received. Are they online or no?
she's here,
Oh, she's here.
Jane's here.
Jane. I don't have my glasses on. I got my computer glasses on.
Good
Sorry about
evening.
that.
Hi, Jane.
Well,
Hi, Jane.
hi. No, I'm glad to join you all in person. Thank you for having me. As was mentioned, there is a draft that we sent to you for your review. For tonight, I really want to focus in on discussion of the goals and objectives and the implementation table. This is obviously our first pass at kind of reflecting what we heard through the process, your work with us on the future land use, as well as the public engagement survey results. And so we hope that that's reflect the goals and objectives and the implementation are reflective of those items. But if we can walk through those this evening, I think that would be the best use of our time. The other chapters, chapter 2, the existing conditions, and then the public service strategy are more background information. There's some public service strategy items that get folded into the implementation, but I think a lot of it is similar to what your 2010 plan had. And then we've talked about the future land use strategy as well. So if there's general comments, I'm happy to start with those, and then we can dive into the goals and objectives.
Well, how do you want to approach just basic errors in there that like spelling or?
Well, I will say we did go through it once with a copy edit, but it still hasn't been formatted for graphics. You know, this is a kind of 90% draft. If you have specific things you want to send me, I think that's probably best. Otherwise, I'm happy to take them here tonight,
Yeah.
but in the interest of everyone's time, an email or a marked up document, I'm happy to receive.
Well, there's also a couple items that are related to, the information of the township that, and I don't want to delay this part of the meeting, so I don't know what you.
In the existing conditions analysis is
Well,
that-
like, I give you example, you refer to the ISD for that the township's in as ROOC, but that's actually core. ROC is a different organization.
okay.
And then, there's, in the information about, what's a, educational opportunities in the area, there's nothing in there about Kirtland College, which is a key because we collect a levy in this county for that college. And it's been moved to, I don't know if you're aware of that, over to 4 Mile. So it's got a new campus and I think it's an important asset that should be listed in there.
Great. And those types of items are very helpful. So if you have substantive things like that you want to bring up, I'm taking notes right now. So I appreciate that.
Jane in a similar wife is, so she rewrote the sections that she had for the Parks and Rec stuff, some things to come out and some things to go in. There were some things that were listed and other.
That would be awesome. That would be wonderful. Thank you. Any other general comments? Yeah.
I had some specific stuff. We're out. So are you gonna go over the whole thing?
We can, or if they're like, if it's up to you, if you want to send them to me, if you feel like they're minor, if you want to discuss them, let's discuss them.
Some of I can just quickly go.
Yeah.
And I can send you both. I didn't get a chance to go through the whole thing. Halfway through. I'm writing so quick. There are some, I guess it's page 9, the input briefings. You mentioned the immediate area, I think, for businesses and those kind of things. But I wonder if you could maybe make mention of some of the businesses near and far from the township. The example is up at Sharps Corners. That's, just one road and, across from the state park, and you've got, the Dollar General and I'm not saying that everything has to be listed. You might make mention that there are
Things beyond
local
the
businesses that are
boundary.
immediately near. And, some other areas about the surrounding, stuff, obviously Houghton Lake and Lake St. Helen in the township. On page 10, the population changes. The turnover mentions or it's not mentioned. I mean, you mentioned the growth in the population and the decrease in the population, especially the last 5 years, but there's a lot, I believe, big turnover, which I think is important in the last 10 years of the houses is there. And I think we may have mentioned that before. I don't know how you capture that, but there may be a decrease in population, but if you go down some of the different neighborhoods, it's like in mine in particular in the west side, Old Point Comfort area, there's been, like a 80% turnover in houses sold in the last 15 years.
Okay.
And a lot of those, they've done major remods or tear downs and
Yeah.
bigger places go up.
Kind of on that note too, is that when you refer to population, you're talking about people that vote here, not second homes, seasonal.
The technical, yeah, it's 50% of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because 67% of the properties in this township is non-homestead. And so I think that population thing is kind of a misleading in the way that if you only look at it from that standpoint, it does allude to some discussion about second home or seasonal people. But I think that maybe more emphasis on the fact that may be part of what skews the why our population is dramatically dropped more than the state. I don't think our population or the number of people have necessarily, there's not less houses. There's just the dynamics of second home to primary is part of that change. But you can't, to prove that, you'd have to I went back 10 years and I looked at the percentage of the non-homestead to, and it was a 1% change that I could tell just roughly over from a 10-year look back. But I suspect it's part of what's skewing that and I don't want people to think that people are exiting the township because that's not really the case. It's just the utilization of those homes is different.
Sure.
Right. And that's kind of what I was referring to too as well. And then you have, a lot of retirees, and what you can't capture for the future stuff, it's kind of hard, but you see I see it anecdotally, I guess you could say, happening right now with, retirees that are now trending to come up here, like from the baby boomer generation that are just getting in, the retirement. Now they're going to go to, this will be full-time or it'll be their primary residence, and they may do the summer thing. So that has implications and stuff on and other things.
Let's try not to get too far off the weeds, because
I can give everything in a summary there.
yeah, I mean, if you guys are both bringing up good important stuff,
I could put mine in summarization and send it.
and even at our next meeting, we can all review it together,
Yeah.
and then either agree to send it or not, or you can just send it. Jane can compile it from there, but
I just
focus
asked,
on.
can you, when you guys do that, can you copy the rest of the
Oh,
board
yeah.
just so I can
Yeah.
follow what's,
Yeah, that's a good
yeah.
point, Brett.
Actually, just, I thought that before we send, do we want to discuss among them, among ourselves? Because I'm sure, each of us, has comments. Because actually, I have something similar or something that I could also kind of branch off, one or two comments. So we can discuss and maybe consolidate our notes.
Yeah, I mean, we could see what we come up with, share it.
Yeah, I'm happy
then we
to
can-
receive all of your comments and kind of summarize them and bring them to your next meeting, and then we can implement and kind of integrate your comments, and then if you want to have further discussion on how that worked, then we can talk about it at your next meeting. Does that sound?
Sounds good.
Uh,
That's what I was trying to.
Yeah.
That we gather everything and deal with the.
Yeah.
Um,
Especially the background. I realize, and some of it is what data is available, but I appreciate, the context, and you have more of that nuance, obviously, that's really important for us to include. So thanks.
we'll pause for a minute. Jim, you got a urgent question.
Sorry, I only looked at this in the last couple of hours, but I saw two things that came to mind. One was you're using old time, a Good Times Party Store as a graphic. And
Yeah.
they're not a Gerrish Township.
I will caveat that the graphics are not by any means finalized, nor is the format of the plan. So yeah.
I questioned that too when I saw that.
And the other one was well, maybe it's the same comment that is the graphic with regard to the the zoning districts for the township shows a bunch of property that's not zoned as commercial, but it is indeed commercial. Will that get updated? Have you caught that?
Is that the future land use map? Is that what
Page 74.
Jim, I got confused on that because what they're doing is they're showing properties that have been improved. If it's vacant, it's white. So where you think it should be commercial and colored red, you're showing it as white and calling it vacant. That's what I caught on.
Looked like it was showing commercial properties.
It was,
It doesn't reflect what is commercial that on the street here.
right, because some of those are not improved,
There a bunch of them are. They're
Well,
existing.
Yeah, you're talking about the three over here. I understand. Okay, we'll look at it.
You guys got it covered, that's fine. I just happened to see it in the last couple hours. So.
Okay. So you want us to go to chapter 4?
yes, if you can. And just so I'm clear, that's the future land use map, correct? That you were talking about with the
64, I think.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, so starting on page 55, chapter 4. Really wanted to highlight kind of where these goals came from and what motivated them, but they're obviously still very much up for discussion, and it is in draft form. This is our first attempt at capturing what we felt the community had voiced and what we had heard from this commission. So starting with goal number 1, I'm sorry, I'm trying to scroll through my document here. Because obviously Higgins Lake, I know we've talked about balancing the fact that Higgins Lake isn't obviously the whole township, but it becomes such a prominent piece. And what we heard repeatedly in the survey was that it was really the number one priority was protection of the lake and the watershed. And so along with that, we have included some objectives around establishing the septic inspection, which we know that you're working on, continuing to develop a public education effort, which we know the health of Higgins Lake is working on, and that the township is working with the Higgins Lake Property Owners Association, the Health of Higgins Lake Steering Committee, state and county agencies to manage the watershed, and maybe there's an opportunity for a formal watershed management plan. And then it looks like on your agenda tonight, you have a shoreline stabilization ordinance amendment potentially to discuss. And so you're probably reviewing some of the shoreline zoning standards, and then working with the Cut River Dam Special Assessment District to ensure dam maintenance, and then also partnering with the DNR to encourage any inspections at major access points. I know sometimes they have folks out at the boat wash stations, but it's not quite as consistent. I know the DNR is not the easiest organization to work with, but they're going to be kind of the main partner in something like that, along with addressing kind of the congestion or the boat traffic management that we heard from survey respondents who had concerns about that as well. So kind of just did a quick overview on those objectives. Are there any comments on the goal or any of those objectives?
Well, on the septic ordinance, it's gonna be township wide. It's not just in the watershed. I don't know if that makes a difference or not.
Yeah.
No, that's important.
And it really isn't like starting with the 500 feet
Yeah.
shoreline, is that? I mean, it's,
No, that's,
yeah.
I haven't seen all the drafts, and
Yeah,
so,
well, that's on the agenda
yeah,
tonight too.
so this was kind of a stab in the dark, but I'll update that.
The only other thing I saw out of that was that, the Cut River Dam Special Assessment, I don't think it's even called that, but is it? It's
called a munis.
Dad district.
It's just,
it's actually the county's drain district or
special assessment district. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
it falls under the
Drain Commission.
drain commission of the county. Currently the township has really no say in what they're doing or.
Yeah, but it might be still good just to acknowledge.
Yeah,
that
I
there's a
get
structure
it, but I
there
think it needs to be emphasized. That's
and
a
being
county,
controlled.
that's a county owned dam, not township.
You could say work with the county on the
Yeah.
Cut River Dam.
Okay, great. Got that as well.
I can just also mention you mentioned the Higgins Lake Property Owners and the Health of Higgins Lake Steering Committee. There are other environmental organizations around the lake. I mean, I don't know if you want
There's
to
one.
include them all.
Yeah, there's one I included. It's probably the same.
Well, there's the foundation, but there's also the Land Conservancy, Higgins Lake Land Conservancy. And so I don't know if you want to, all of them or what.
Yeah, I think
I think that the foundation and the property owners have been working with the invasive species aspect of that.
Mhm.
Land Conservancy has not, so I was going to suggest that the foundation be included in that paragraph.
I think those are both important. Thank you.
So that would be then the Higgins Lake Foundation.
There's another water monitoring evolution that's been going on annually since the 70s. And I don't know what the formal name of that is. It's not under the different associations
You
that
can-
donate money to it.
Right. I remember you mentioning that, and I did spend some time trying to find that data or report, but without having a name, I kind of came up short. If you have any
Yeah,
information,
there wasn't any one report. It's just somebody, they've been collecting. I've helped did that several years ago, but they've been doing it for 70 years and with the same equipment. It's garnered national attention or international attention now
yeah.
because of the experiment stuff going on using the same equipment and that kind of stuff. And I can find, I'll get information from the people that
Yeah, if you could,
have it, but there's no formal report. And I think somebody from the Roscommon High School now is the one that they do it once a month during the summertime.
okay. Yeah, if you have anything you can share about that. I did make a quick search, but wasn't able to find it. And if there's not a formal report, that
Like
makes sense.
That may now be discontinued, by the way, but I'll find out about that.
Okay. Cause I would,
But the high school was discontinued. when
okay.
The sponsoring person at the high school retired. So I don't know exactly where that is right now, but I'll find out.
Okay. Cause was a lot of the health of Higgins Lake, I think the environmental thing, it was covering a lot of those different, because there's Michigan State did, water surveys and
There are
several times.
the Health of Higgins Lake Science Committee created a database that has every study that we're aware of regarding Higgins Lake. We have 40-some studies there, or reports or studies. So there is a repository now for all that
And
stuff.
is that online?
It is, I don't think that's publicly available yet. It will
Okay.
be.
Working on it.
We're working on it. It's just
So when I
not-
couldn't find it, because I remember someone saying that when I couldn't find it,
It's not.
it's not, okay, it's not out there.
We're not quite yet. It will ultimately be, but.
Okay. Well, if you have anything in the meantime you want included from those, or if you want to send those along, please feel free. Anything else on this goal? And if any of these seem like they're just they don't fit with what should be in the plan at any point, we can also talk about that. But number 2, focusing on the natural resources beyond just the lake, the forest, wetlands, open spaces. And that was something we heard. The rural character is extremely important, and protecting conservation areas as a second top priority. So, requiring the identification and protection of significant woodlands, wetlands, and natural buffers if there is a development, project that comes in and is near sensitive natural features, reviewing maximum lot coverage and impervious surface standards. So one thing we heard is, making sure that the tree coverage stays as people build on their lots as much as possible, and making sure that the lots are not being covered completely with cement or other impermeable surfaces. And then supporting the continuation of state forest lands and making sure that the planned land use along those boundaries or within those state forest lands is not incompatible with conservation of those areas, which I think we've addressed through the future land use. And then helping property owners more of an educational piece, understand the benefit of native plants and natural shoreline buffers. I don't know if it's worth mentioning the Health of Higgins Lake or any other organizations who might be doing work on this. And then more generally, just protecting the whole watershed system, the Cut River corridor, tributary streams, and wetlands, and ensuring that there's adequate zoning setbacks from those items. Any notes on the objectives or this goal?
That is the mission of the Higgins Lake Land Conservancy, is to protect land. I mean, so they set up, they purchase property or get property donated to them, and they then put it, deed restrictions on it or whatever, and it's forever protected. So that is the mission of the Higgins Lake Land Conservancy.
Yeah, all of that. We have a pretty strong presence already in the community.
And they should definitely be included here then. Thank you.
I have a question on, like when you, require the identification of protection of significant woodlands, and et cetera. Is there something that points to somebody that's required to go out and do that and document it somewhere? Or, I mean, you put it as a goal down here, and that's why it's a little. Like, I agree with it, but it's like, okay, we're gonna go out, is there gonna be another follow-on effort? Whether it's part of the master plan or some other thing to somebody else delegated to go out and do that.
Typically what how I've seen this implemented is if a developer is coming through and the parcel is not been developed, if it's greenfield and there's still woodlands, they actually have to provide that type of survey. So they would have to provide a survey that shows all of the trees, all the woodlands, and then the wetlands. Eagle typically gets involved in the wetland regulation, but that's where you would have something prior to them coming in that requires that, and then you would have a threshold for woodland disruption. And so if it's more than I'm making up a number, 5 acres of woodland disruption, then you would say that's a significant woodland. And that's where you might require natural buffers or offsets if they were disrupting or removing that many natural features on a site. So it would be a zoning ordinance requirement, but the responsibility would really fall on a developer. I don't see it happening frequently, but it's something that you might want to consider putting into your zoning ordinance requirements. If that's what we're saying here. But if that seems like it's onerous or unlikely, I'm happy to revise that. But that's the thought process that goes along with that one.
Now, the thing I was missing out, it was saying, so you're saying if a property is developed or something like that, and you've captured that in the goal of ensure that future development respect. So I was thinking when you were describing, oh, just say, any property.
No,
it's
it's
gonna be done.
Yeah.
You said that and I oversaw it.
Okay. Anything else on this? Okay. The next goal, I think, kind of goes hand in hand. The rural character of the land use, the residential, and kind of the resort nature of Gerrish Township, and making sure that any new land uses introduced are managed and support that. So I think you're already doing a lot of work for that. We reference is it adopted, the short-term rental ordinance? Is that correct? Did I get that right? Okay.
That's another spot earlier in the report. It talks about proposed.
Probably because we wrote it when it was proposed and it didn't get caught in the
Yeah.
review. So, I think the future land use map and your zoning already supports a lot of this in terms of limiting land uses and making sure that the heavy industrial areas are not really near the residential areas. And I know we talked about self-storage and large format retail. And so it's not saying don't have them, it's just being sensitive to where those are, considering building scale in residential zones and maximum lot coverage. I know you have that in your zoning ordinance, but it's might be beneficial to at least review it. And then making sure that any telecommunications infrastructure is protecting view sheds as much as possible and minimizing visual impact. I know we talk more about the telecommunications, but I thought it was important to integrate here as it relates to the rural character. And then just good housekeeping, reviewing the zoning ordinance to make sure that use classifications are in line with the standards and community priorities. Any comments on anything here? No? Okay. Pretty straightforward. Number 4, around commercial development, supporting commercial development that serves the day-to-day needs of residents and visitors, and fits into the existing character. I think this is something we heard in the engagement And then we also talked about here, and it's probably one of the more difficult items to actualize, but encouraging more local food and grocery. It's, the market is going to dictate what the market can support, but trying to discourage major warehouse scale uses. I don't think you're currently at risk of that, but who knows what's going to happen in the next, 10, 15, 20 years. And then considering maybe design standards for commercial areas, if there are new buildings, even if it's like percentage of windows that you're including in your frontage, and then making sure that the zoning supports small locally owned business, allowing for home-based operations where it's appropriate, and any sort of cottage industry or accessory commercial uses, whether that be. I do a lot of work on this as one of my personal passions. So it's even a small, soap making, something that someone's doing in their house, making sure that you're permitting it and so that there's not any conflict there. But I don't think it's super controversial, but I'm happy to take any input on these. Okay. All right. And we know that, as we discussed, the township's median age is a little bit older than the state or the county even, making sure that housing options allow people to stay here as they age, at every stage. We talked a little bit about the accessory dwelling units. I don't know if people had further thoughts on that, if we needed to dial that language back. I didn't feel like we settled on kind of it being off the lake last time, but maybe considering it in some point in the future as it get closer to the lake in certain contexts. But I didn't feel like we had come to 100% consensus. So I'm happy to make any revisions to that. And then we also discussed the cluster developments, providing a little more variety and preserving those natural features. And then making sure that short-term rental ordinance is doing what you want it to do, and monitoring the activity and adjusting the regulations as needed from there. Do we want to discuss any of those items? I felt like this category were things that we had discussed at least the last two meetings. But if there's further consensus that we want to consider, we can do that now.
I think you're gonna find it split down the middle on the issues of ADUs, because part of our reports indicating that we're oversaturated, and then we turn around and say, well, let's add some more,
Yeah.
living space on that same. And my concern as a sitting here and as a board member for the township is that if we make it sound like we're promoting that, this document is gonna sit here beyond my tenure here, probably some of the other ones. And somebody's gonna read that and think, well, they thought it was okay. And I'm not sure that's the way the consensus is. So.
Yeah, that's exactly what I had noted too, is I don't think that's something we want to look at as being encouraged.
It says consider it, doesn't say doing it, but
Even putting it in there though makes it sound like an option. I'd rather it not.
I get the feeling are you focusing mainly around the high density areas? Is where your concerns are?
that's where my concern is.
Okay, and
They're the
then-
ones that are gonna.
And that makes sense, but you could still allow it in areas that
Yep.
are outlying those high density areas. And I think that's where
Maybe adding that caveat in there.
well, exactly my point is it has its place. I think. I mean, I agree with you, high density areas that can't support everything that'll be required, because you're going to require, there's going to be a lot of restrictions for them to do that. Would mainly be in the sewer and water or septic systems and stuff. So, but that's why I think it could be included in the plan. And then the zoning will tell you where you're allowed to do that.
And in the future land use section, we talk more about it being focused on the low density areas, but I think adding that specifically here so it's consistent throughout the document, we can do that if that seems appropriate, that it's staying away from the higher density areas that you're already having trouble supporting with the services that
Yeah.
need to support those homes.
I guess I have a little stronger viewpoint on that. I have concern about any of it in the watershed. That's my concern is we, as one friend of mine says, we have the Higgins Lake, everything's almost to, we just have the biggest, pool, yeah, you know. Yeah, so we're just, why would we put additional density in the watershed? That's my concern. And I know that's not everybody's, whether it's a densely populated area or not. Outside the watershed and in a less dense area, I don't have a concern, but I do in the watershed.
Well, I read, and maybe I misinterpreted it, but I was reading in here where it said that ideally you want a home on an acre.
That, yeah, that's
And,
correct.
and this is contrary to that, because you're heading for do that, and I don't know the answer. I know that I definitely wouldn't want to put it around the lake, because I think it's already tight enough in there, but I could see like my place, so I'm on 17 acres, yeah, maybe there's a place for that there. I don't know how many houses around there have an acre, but on there. So I
Yeah, and
don't, it seems like we're sending a mixed message.
The other thing to consider, when it comes to, with the septic, specifically with 1 acre being kind of the best practice. If you're going to probably, I would imagine, regulate any sort of accessory dwelling unit by square footage, and it may be that it can't surpass what a home could be on a 1 acre site. And maybe it's 1 acre outside of the watershed that's appropriate. And you say you allow right now 3,600 square foot home. Someone has 2,200 square foot home. They can put a 1,400 square foot accessory dwelling unit, because the impact on a septic is similar in that you're not exceeding what you're already going to allow if someone can build a 3,600 square foot home. So I'm saying that to just add a little bit of that context of like, you're not putting another 3,600 square foot home on an acre. It really should be whatever it can support or whatever you're currently supporting.
The other hand, the fact that we might not include an ADU here doesn't mean you can't do it somewhere in the township. It just means we're not citing it in this instance.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, not every area is. Would you want one there because of environmental factors or many other things? But there's definitely a potential need. I wouldn't say there are a ton of them, but if any, I don't know.
Well, I kind of feel like Brad stated is that if we can keep that sort of thing away as much as possible, I think it's helpful to the lake, which is.
Well, Brad's referring to the whole watershed, which means you can't build anything if you don't want to, because everything you build
Well, there are some.
a mile away from the lake still is going to drain to the lake.
I think in some areas, though, the watershed doesn't include the entirety of Gerrish Township, doesn't.
No. But
So that would kind of be my point, is it? If it were,
We're pretty much in it.
If it was in the watershed, I'd be against it.
But isn't that what most
everything
people,
is in the watershed.
is that what most people want to do though, is have one in the watershed? I mean,
Well, that's what I would want to
that's,
discourage.
but that's the thing though, but just my opinion, it just seems like that's what most folks would want to do, is add on to their existing home that's close to the lake or on the lake, because they have
We
a lot
wouldn't,
of.
yeah, that was I was saying, though, high density, you don't want to
Right,
allow
but-
this, so you wouldn't allow it,
Right,
you know?
but that's where most people probably wouldn't want to do it.
I'm sympathetic to the goals of it. I mean, we do have housing
I
issues,
agree, but I'm just,
but we also have a unique environment here, a unique ecological system we have here. So that's, I'm not opposed to the concept generally. I'm just looking at it from an environmental perspective.
Could I take like a straw poll of hands of should we remove ADUs altogether out of the plan? If you support removing the mention of it altogether, can you raise your hand, indicate that that's what you want to do?
What, to take it out?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I tried.
Well,
I'm just trying to get a feel. Like
I
I'm,
told you it's gonna be.
it's probably
yeah,
safe,
no, I know.
probably
I
safer just to take it out.
take it out.
The entire section?
Does not have that in.
Just a reference to ADUs, yeah.
I mean, we have in the zoning ordinance right now, with certain size lot areas, you can put additional, residences and stuff on there. So in some cases, we allow that. We don't call them ADUs, or we haven't in the past, but it's not like it's not there.
Precisely, we've been doing it all along. Every remodels, you're adding, number one thing you're adding most of the time is bedrooms. Families are expanding constantly and all that sort of thing, and they all want to be there at the same time. But there's some areas it just doesn't work, and there's other areas it does. So in effect, we already are doing it. This is just a fancy way a nice new name to put on it. I mean, Jason said that at our last meeting. He said, yeah, we're already doing it.
Right.
But they gotta follow all the restrictions, we got restrictions in place to make sure that the impact to the lake or to the neighbor or whatever is minimized.
But the key thing in this, Tom, is it's saying consider amending
I just, yeah, what
So-
I say, like, we're kind of encouraging.
that.
The amending thing would be is you're finally put a label on an activity that's been taking place.
Well, then call it that. Don't say consider amending it, because you're saying to amend the zoning ordinance to allow accessory dwelling units. Maybe you should say, define what they are, that compared to what we currently are, and something to talk about the continued,
I mean, you could take the label out, it doesn't matter. Like I
well,
said,
this,
what's
it's,
happening is
it's talking about amending our ordinance. It's not talking about,
And I'm telling you, ordinance already has it in there. The amendment would be nothing.
that's what you're saying. But the 5 years from now, when somebody else is reading this, is not gonna say that.
That's what I'm saying. Take it out. That's fine.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is
Okay.
we're doing it already. All this is a label. If you don't like the label, take it out.
I'd take that out too.
It's not what I'm reading.
Well, I think we landed on removing it as, at least as a reference, and maybe we'll circle back to what's already allowed and offer some recommendations to how the zoning ordinance further define what is currently happening. Anything else on this one?
For the short-term rentals, you don't have to have a permit, if you have a separate dwelling on property, whatever that unit was you're talking about.
I didn't want to bring that up, but in the ordinance, if I have a PRE and I have an ADU, I can rent that without any regulations by our ordinance.
Mm.
That's the caveat we put in there at the board level.
And so,
Did you have to be present too or not? Just
You have to be present,
yeah.
but if you have an ADU, you know, and there was a concern that there'd be a potential abuse of that, I've seen that as a way of getting around things, which we're gonna deal with probably in the enforcement area, is our best spies are your neighbors, so they'll tell us what's going on. But that is, but I don't.
so
That's not the reason. I'm just having an issue with the fact that it says amending the zoning to allow something that, as Tom says, we already have. So why
can,
even have it in there?
sure. Can I ask a point of clarification then? So the folks with existing ADUs, those aren't just nonconformities. There's actually a pathway if you have a certain amount of land. There is a pathway to have a secondary
Yeah.
residence. Okay. Thank you.
But there's some places that do have two residents that are not conforming. They're legal because they've been grandfathered in. So
Yep. you
But
got
there is a
two.
path. Okay. And is that in all zoning districts or is it just in some? I can revisit the zoning ordinance, but if you all have it off the top of your head, then
I couldn't answer that
okay.
at this point.
Okay. All right. Well, that's helpful input. I appreciate it. Thank you. Nothing else on the housing piece. We'll move to number 6, community vitality. Supporting the residents who are here, attracting new residents, seasonal visitors, and where folks want to invest long term. We heard for the need for further broadband and cellular infrastructure. I know that the Planning Commission has approved a cell tower recently. We did make mention of that more in the context of the other goals and some of the supporting language, but continuing to ensure that that's accessible. Some of it isn't, and maybe it's rephrasing. I don't want anyone to think that the township necessarily is investing in the broadband and cellular infrastructure. So reading this now, I realize that maybe you could misinterpret it that way and we can change that language. The next objective, I actually wanted to,
We already have that.
that's what I thought, but
We have exactly what you described. The Roscommon County
Okay.
Transit Authority does on-demand response, and they already have medical
Mhm.
program for getting people to get the chemo or whatever it is they need.
And they do community activities too.
okay.
You're on that board, so you should know all that.
I remembered that being
You did a fine
mentioned.
job there, Jim.
if I could make a point, just
Yeah.
yeah, on the first one, I would, when you say invest in the broadband, technically broadband includes cellular and landline. So I would say if you invest in the broadband and then you could put in parentheses to include landline and cellular.
Okay. Thank you. Home-based businesses. Make sure that you're continuing to engage seasonal residents in the planning processes. And I think generally this last one kind of captures a lot of what we're trying to do here and making it a great place to live with natural amenities, accessible housing, and attracting those who can live here year round or may work remotely. Are there any other notes on these? All right, moving on to non-motorized mobility and recreation. We did hear a lot that folks want some sort of trail system or ability to get around on bike around the lake. And so we are saying consider conducting a feasibility study for non-motorized path around Higgins Lake. I know there is a decent sized shoulder around a lot of the county roads, but it might be something that in the future, the township, if it were to receive a grant, could dive into further. Is this?
Actually, to tell you the truth, I'm the incoming president for the Rotary Club, and that is a project we're gonna work on.
Okay.
We've got money in the community foundation, and will probably tap the township, but we're looking to put, it'll be called a bicycle route around the lake, and mapping with all the amenities like the parks and the bathrooms and so on. Part of that will go through the South State Park and the North State Park, which is a bicycle path.
Yeah, it's
But
beautiful.
the other parts, you can't call it a path, it's a route. And I intend to talk to the road commission about the right of ways and what we can do to
Okay.
make it safer. So that's a project that's actually going to occur.
Well,
Not necessarily spearheaded by the township, but it's on the agenda.
Okay, well, that's great. So this is probably appropriate to
Yep.
leave here.
Glad you put it in there.
The next is requiring residential and commercial developments. And when I say residential, and I'll add this caveat here already, don't mean single family homes that people are updating or are building on one new lot. But if someone were to come in and do a cluster development or a tract of homes, requiring kind of contribution to the path or the route, as kind of a condition of approval. Is this feel too stringent? Does it feel overly optimistic?
It's a nice goal.
Yeah. It's a nice enough goal to leave in there.
I think so.
Okay. It sounds like this already aligns with what you were talking about, Jim, working with the road commission to improve the shoulders or shared use markings or reducing hazards as possible on the roads for pedestrians and cyclists. And Greg, you might have items for the next one. I mean, I know you have an up-to-date Parks and Recreation master plan, which is great. If there's other amenities that should be listed here other than pickleball courts or picnic facilities, those were the things we heard in the survey that we got back. But if there's other items that we should highlight, I'm happy to get that feedback. And then lastly, improving public access through road end improvements, accessible fishing areas and viewing points.
That one, I don't know how the township could, 'cause we don't have any control of the road ends.
Okay. Is that a county ordinance on how those get utilized?
Well, right now we're in court over that because the county's trying to collect money from the township for the SAD for the road ends, which we're saying
They're not
we don't
yours.
own them.
Because they're
County has
Right.
just as much interest in that road end as we do.
Yeah.
It's- The road commission controls it, so
removing this one.
I'm not an expert
I
on
would-
that.
I don't know if I'd remove it because the House of Higgins Lake is looking at road ends from an environmental impact thing, but I don't know why you couldn't tie in accessibility and things with that. So, I mean, I think
Well,
it's not a bad goal.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
one of the problems I personally have with that being that one that used to be non-existent, now it's overly existent, is that not everybody wants, a lot of the road ends and stuff for access were for the local neighborhoods. And now you got some road ends that are, have better facilities and stuff on them, which makes them more conducive to invite people in, which the local neighborhood doesn't want. And so that, I mean, it's something that I see you could ask two different sets of people in the local neighborhoods whether they want them or not. There are public access things through, the in West Higgins Lake boat launch and a couple other parks and the state parks. So that's, I just throw it out there as just a general comment.
Kelly Beach, I don't know, must be an exception. I don't know exactly all the rules on it, but that is. They put a boat launch on there every spring and. The association does that.
Right. And that's something I'm overly, at Old Point Comfort, the island stuff. So
But I'm just saying that there probably are some road ends that might. Qualify based on whatever the legal wrangling is on that, because I know.
Well, Kelly Beach is unique because that's actually a boulevard.
Yeah, that's a little
on the
different.
water.
On the wall.
Yeah.
It's not really a road end in
Well, there
the
is.
sense of the word,
Yeah.
because it's a boulevard that intersects the road
Right.
and the lake. So
Right.
it's totally unique.
I guess what I'm getting at is there might be a way to word this in that some of those opportunities are there, but not for every one of them. I don't know. I
Well,
think it
trouble
is a
with
good-
road end is you got right way and that's it.
Yeah.
Kelly Beach, you have a road paralleling the
Across there,
lake
yeah,
and everything from the road to the lake is public.
right. Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
But Tom is explaining that.
So anyway,
A township right now governs
there's been
dock
big
use
battles over
on road
road
ends, right? They have to get a permit through, is it the police department, I
That's
think?
for the boats out in the
Well,
water.
no, that's for the
No,
dock.
for the docks have to be.
Yeah,
It's for the
John,
docks,
But that's conforming with the state.
right? But that's, so they have a hand in it in terms of approving docks being put out there.
There was something brought up, Brian, actually, I remember as the police chief had a suggestion, and this is what the road ends would look like, maybe the township as a whole looks at, all the road ends, because I think we may have the most road ends of any lake in the state. And he was maybe suggesting there's a lot that are not used, or just like between the properties. So the point of the option was maybe you look at identifying X number of really useful road ends that have the access, and then the other ones basically sell them, maybe to the neighbor or to the people that own the properties next to them, and then you get more tax stuff from those, and then
well, to answer your question, I would say leave it in there.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I would too.
Things,
I think it's fine.
as people are saying, may change down
Yeah.
the road.
Yep.
So
Hopefully it's broad enough that
it is.
It is.
it captures all of that.
I think
It
so.
does.
All right, moving on to number 8, broadband and connectivity. We touched on this in a couple of the other goals, but getting into a little bit more detail, potentially mapping existing broadband and cell coverage within the township, and engaging state and federal broadband funding programs. There's a federal program called BEAD, if you're not already aware of that, to potentially bring improved service to the underserved areas. Adopting telecommunication infrastructure siting ordinance. We mentioned that back in the kind of rural goal, especially thinking about view sheds, the shoreline, standards for height, setbacks, and screening. It can prioritize co-location. I'm sure there's still a need here potentially for those tall towers, but eventually I think we'll see more of those smaller 5G type co-location on existing power poles and things of that nature. And then working with the internet service providers in the state of Michigan to potentially accelerate fiber or fixed wireless broadband deployment, and encouraging new construction to include conduit and wiring that allows for fiber or future broadband upgrades. Are there any objections to any of these items? Changes?
I guess I don't know when you say adopt telecommunications infrastructure siting ordinance. We just did the cell tower and they basically said they've had 3 locations and were turned down by 1 or 2 of them, or they only had 2. And then the one they came to us with and they said, well, what about if you moved it over onto the cemetery property, and they said, no, we have precise measuring instruments that tell us we need to be within a certain area to have it work. So you could have an ordinance, but I just don't know what it would.
That's fair. I mean, I think it's balancing that, and
Yeah.
also I work a lot with
How about if we change the word, instead of saying adopt, say support?
Yeah.
Or something
Yeah,
less.
Because
Yeah, I like that.
yeah.
that makes sense. And
Okay.
because that
But other than that, I'm fine with
Yeah.
it. I mean,
I-
I think we should be involved
yeah,
as much as we possibly can, but
I know
Yeah.
those cell phone tower people, they're intense. They're
Oh, yeah.
oh that I deal with that all the time. They tell you all sorts of things.
Yeah. But there's competing issues, and I'm on the other side of that for health things. A lot of people don't agree with, but
Yeah,
I just, as an FYI, that Congress right now is actually in the process of trying to get an act through the FCC that would basically supersede all local authorities and state authorities, that didn't matter what you have in your ordinance, that they could put a cell tower up 2 feet from your house if they wanted. They could
Yeah.
put it anywhere, anytime, any type. And that's under things right now. So a lot of that would actually supersede some of the stuff we've.
It's above our pay grade.
Yeah,
Yes.
the state did that too. There were still some ways to work around it. So I don't know. Where there's a will, there's usually some sort of way, but it definitely limits it. Anything else on any of the other ones here? Okay. Second to last one, public service and fiscal responsibility. I think this was a lot of kind of what we had included, you had included in your previous plan, but I thought was valuable. Maintaining and updating capital improvement program, evaluating fiscal impact on land use decisions, maintaining current fire and EMS capabilities, budget for services for both the seasonal population as well as, the year-round taxpayers, not placing an unfair burden on those folks. And any decision to establish public sewer and water is proceeded through fiscal and public health analysis. I know you've done a lot of work on that. This is a long-range plan. I think that last one was the one that came to mind and maybe getting some input from you all, but are there any of these that you want to discuss?
Should we consider adding the police in there with the fire and EMS?
Yes.
That is a assessment that we collect here at the township to provide that service.
Yeah, thank you. These all seem fair?
Yeah, can I ask a question? I don't know if it'd be appropriate to be in here or not, but I know I'm thinking way ahead and that's what this is supposed to be about, right? So,
Yeah.
You talk about, ensure that any decision on public sewer and water services preceded by fiscal and public health analysis. Let's just say, for example, we find that we have issues with wells around the lake and we decide to do the community decides they wanted, their own water system. Should we be looking already at like preserving land for where well would be, or is that way down the road and not even worry about something like that?
I think it's never hurts to be that forward thinking with how much land is like largely available. I don't know that that's like a concern compared to other communities where you're seeing encroachment into those possibilities. But I would say it definitely is helpful to have that type of long range vision. I don't know what the financial position is to acquire something like that currently, but it would make it a lot more possible when you decide to take that step. If you
I was
just,
thinking if
yeah.
they decide in 15 years to do it, then trying to get land's a problem. I just,
Yeah.
But one thing about that though is right now there's a big issue with PFAS, up and especially in Camp Grayling area, and they're finding it all over the place and under the ground. So it's one of those things that you could possibly see, okay, you designate this land and then you find out later that land is
Right.
that you did that may be contaminated. A lot of that water probably is around here, unfortunately.
Okay, that was just a question.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That's a good thought.
All right. Anything else before we move on to the last one? All right. Last one is really focusing on emerging technologies and energy. We talked about this during kind of the kickoff, our initial conversation about renewable energy systems, large scale digital facilities, data centers. So I don't think it's ever harmful, especially in this current state, to be on your toes when it comes to large scale industrial uses, even if they aren't perceived as high impact like data centers. So these objectives really surround, I think we talked about solar panels are in a small scale, probably appropriate, but in terms of any sort of ground mounted solar farms or commercial wind turbine installations, data centers, there's maybe an argument to be made that the lack of water and sewer facilities would limit any of those types of larger industrial uses. And then any large scale energy or technology facility would need to go through a special land use process and adopting standards for any sort of residential scale wind turbines if someone were to choose to do that, as well as updating the zoning ordinance to make sure you're clearly defining any of these emerging technology uses.
I just find the goal would be tough. Because we've already gone through stuff that the state is, they got their thumb on this and they want to dictate this and dictate that. And it's,
Yeah,
and then they backed off and, it's just
it is,
confusing.
it's definitely confusing.
So it could be a goal, but it'd be a long-term goal, I think.
Yeah, the wind and solar, specifically the energy stuff, the state's gotten their hands into and has made it difficult. But I've seen communities work through that, and I could bend your ear all day about data centers, but I won't do that. But you can figure out a way to work around those as well.
Would you suggest, is this kind of what it's alluding to, of adopting a Creo? When the state started this whole process, you know what I'm talking about?
No,
What's that stand for?
Credo,
It's Creo, Creo.
Yeah, I don't remember
Or
the. acronym.
basically you create your own ordinance
Yeah.
that you make them
For
jump
the-
through your hoops.
yes, for the wind and solar.
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah,
right.
renewable energy
Yes.
development
We opted to
ordinances and stuff.
not pursue that because, well, number one, the wind changed. Pardon my pun, but
The demand.
there's not the funding coming in from the feds that there was. And so that pressure is there. And then secondly, I think we kind of thought, well, we're not really suited for that,
Right.
but I don't know. I just saw a
It-
small solar farm going into Mayo on the right-hand side
Yeah, I think
at the Woodhaven. They've got, I don't know, 20, 30 of those things out there.
I agree that it's not the most, it doesn't make the most sense if I'm looking at siting from, I think, a general perspective, but I've seen crazier, it seems like they're getting more and more creative about where they're going to site some of these things. So it might be something to consider. And that's kind of, yes, that is what's being alluded to here, is looking at creating that ordinance, and then definitely updating the zoning ordinance for those emerging technology uses as well.
I guess the difficult thing is trying to identify what we would need to do that will allow us flexibility in the future to prevent those things from coming in if they so desire, or you keep them. But some of the stuff, if you said it, I don't know how you do that or find out, what's the wording of things now that, it's a concern of mine with some of the industrial stuff, place, if you designate them, that all of a sudden by doing that, that could be the intent of this for the community, that would have, okay, here's the things to be developed. But then once that caveat is out there, then maybe the state comes or federal and says, hey, you got this term right here, you got this. So now it doesn't matter what you say, we're going to do that. So those are the things
Yeah, I mean, I come up against this it's valid in that you don't know. I mean, I have people ask me, well, what if the federal government makes data centers necessary utility and exempts them completely? Well, when we cross that bridge when we get there, but in the meantime, we can do what we can to try and limit and corral and remediate any of those potential facts and mitigate against it as much as possible. So I don't have a perfect answer. But I hear you. Yeah, it's always
I
evolving.
know Richfield Township, which is in our county, adopted a prohibition on data center in there. I don't know if that's legal or not, but
No, I don't think so.
they did.
Well, until someone comes and challenges it, I guess, right? Like that's,
Well,
and you
just
pay
look
the
at
legal
your
fees.
goal again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Establish clear rules for emerging technologies that reflect community values and protect the township's natural character. I think we could come up with a statement doing just that, where if a developer, if they're thinking of putting one in, they're going to come and look at this
well, that,
master plan before they do anything.
yeah,
And we can set the tone, you might say, that this is what we expect if you do want to cite one here.
right. And then when you
Leave it at
do
that.
if you do decide to create standards, it is really important to have it in your master plan. We're finding that you're going to have a lot more legal muster if someone were to challenge
Yeah,
things.
You remove a technicality.
Yeah.
If you didn't have it in there.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what I was thinking.
Yes.
I don't know what you guys think.
Good thought. I think it's a great idea.
So leave it in there as a goal and we'll
Okay.
noodle it.
great. I know you have other business on your agenda tonight, and I don't want to become overly repetitive, but if we go to chapter 7, the implementation matrix, we talk about the zoning, but I think most importantly will be your review of the actual table. So starting on page 95, if you're looking at the page numbers.
If it would be okay, I'd like to back up for just 1 second and go over in that last section in point 7, the very last point we have. I've been sitting here thinking about this. I think the sentence, explore opportunities to improve public access to Higgins Lake. I think we'd be better served to eliminate that. And my reasoning is this: Public Act 56 really does not allow for any of this stuff. And I think to put that in there would appear as though we're trying to do that. And I can see where it may have, as some of the survey work, it may have come up more than once that somebody would like to have that happen. But I think that's a huge thing as far as Public Act 56, which doesn't allow anything but access to the lake through a single dock, doesn't even allow public sunbathing, that kind of stuff. And it's a constant issue that I hear about in the summer from homeowners in lakefront homes and areas where there are just kind of constant agitation at the lake, at the road ends. And Public Act 56 prevents pretty much everything other than access to the lake on a single dock. So if we include this sentence in here and it talks about road end improvements, I think that flies in the face of the law. Accessible fishing areas, well, fishing is kind of in the middle of the lake and not at the road end, so I'm not sure how that applies. And viewing points, I don't think anybody's going to throw somebody off the lake if they're standing there watching the lake. And it's often been said if grandma's watching her 8-year-old kid at the lake, she's not going to be asked to leave because it's sunbathing. But I really think that the whole thing is probably wrong to leave in there.
Would it be proper to include that it must comply with Public Act 56, or should we remove it altogether?
Well, it's like Greg's saying, it's been litigated way to the point where the act that exists tells you exactly what you can do with road ends. And unless something changes somewhere in the near or in the future,
So we should remove it?
most of what you've listed there is not allowed.
Okay, so we'll remove that from 7.
I'm not against removing it. Let's put it that way.
Okay, that's easy enough. Any objection? Great, okay.
No, it's fine.
I don't, unless you all want to go line by line, through the implementation table together on starting on page 95. A lot of it really is trying to tie specific strategies to each objective that we just discussed. It's our best guess at what a priority or time frame might be, but it's something that I think is pretty detailed and might be most helpful to actually just receive your comments back. If there are things that you reviewed and you felt like really stood out, I would like to discuss those, or I will defer to all of you. I'm happy to walk through all of these pages and go through each strategy together in this group, but I also want to be mindful of all of your time.
Are you coming back again?
Yeah, so we are asking that we get any of your written comments by June 19th so that we can compile those and kind of integrate them. And then we'll be back on for the July 9th Planning Commission meeting.
Because we could spend all night on these.
Right.
Yeah.
I went through them, and it's a funny thing is, I think that's probably one of the most important parts of this whole thing, but like you've already read 90 pages before you got there. You know,
Well,
so that's-
is that something we want to bring to the front of the document? I mean, that's a great, we do it all sorts of ways. We
Well, I'm
do it at the
saying from my
beginning.
standpoint,
Yeah.
I didn't get to it, so I couldn't offer anything worthwhile.
I will say though, that yeah, there's a couple things that need to be changed in here, but, no, I'm happy with that. Tom, is that okay? Or do you want to go through
I'm here all night. What's, you know, it's up to you guys, what you want to do.
I think.
Is there anything in particular you'd want to bring up at the moment? That you noticed?
Yeah, anything you're like, I absolutely hate it. I won't like, get it out of here. I will adjust based off the objectives. Obviously, we struck tonight, but anything else?
I'm like Mike, I didn't get all the way through the document, so I'd like some time to look at it and respond, I think. Maybe not tonight.
Maybe, Tom, maybe we could all
There is,
go through
you know, since we talked about the ADUs,
send
that on
like
that
all our
page,
comments to you. And you could
100 board.
crystallize it into something to send. to-
We'll have to strike. Well, and in the future land
That's
use
a
plan,
possibility.
well, we'll have to strike it. Well, it will be consistent throughout the doc.
I think our biggest issue is going to be what we consider the priorities and timeframes, because I think the statements in here are driven off of what we just went through.
Yeah.
They're pretty repetitive in that respect.
So you said comments by
June
July
9th,
19th?
June 19th for us to be at your July 9th meeting.
So you want each of us to send it directly to you and you'll compile?
Well,
We can copy everyone on it, but we'll compile them.
I think Greg's idea was pretty good, maybe.
Yeah, I think we
That
probably.
doesn't make you extra work, extra work for you, Tom.
I think we should go through like one party here within our group, suggesting things. And then you can kind of digest all of the things that are said and see if there's some things that make sense not to say or not to get to June. If not, then we give her like one group of everybody's ideas.
Up to you. I don't have a.
Best to forward them all to one entity and stuff.
I do
You get, some of these things we could get. You know, when you start getting discussions back and forth about what just from the Public Act.
Plus they
kind
could
of
be,
stuff,
it could
but-
be a lot of repetitive stuff, and rather than
Yeah.
for her to get it 7 times. Plus, I mean, Tom's proven that he's a miracle worker as far as putting together things of that nature. I think it would be everybody's advantage to have Tom do that.
I'm fine with that. If you just don't wait till the last minute to get it to me.
Yeah.
If you want it by when?
June 19th.
June 19th.
By June 18th.
18th at 11 o'clock. We get that to you.
Guess what that means?
What's your homework do?
Well, Tom, if you hit that point and you want to forward them all to me, trust me, I've done this with 150 people, so I can weed through it.
Well, even just sending it to Tom and then he sends you one batch
Yeah.
of everything without necessarily going through.
Without
That's a lot of-
duplicates and triple.
Yeah.
That's a lot. I'm just done these kind of things before. That's a lot of work of trying to go through each one, seven people, and hey, they got these comments 3 times and trying to it's like when we do the site plan reviews and stuff, it's just better to have all for
I
the
think
first
a
stuff
lot of
going
it,
there.
from what I've read through these things, and a lot of it to me looks terrific. So
Yeah.
I don't know that there's going to be a million corrections. I just think there's going to be some specifics maybe that aren't obvious, like when Jane's crew is putting it together, that may be obvious to us.
Yeah, there certainly will be, because you know your priorities and your capacity better than us, and it's our best guess, so.
So I think if we all sent them there, and then we wouldn't have, it's not like we have to go through it every piece and try to find something to send to Tom, but we have things like that. Maybe we'll have 1 or 2 or 3 things that are the same for everyone and settle on putting it one particular way and give that to Jane.
Yeah, I just realized one problem though. It's a problem. I'm gonna be on vacation June 16th to the 21st. So,
You know, we can say we can have this like in a week or something.
I mean, if you can get them to me by
Exactly.
the 10th.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Well, tomorrow.
No,
No, I'm busy tomorrow.
Might not be a lot to submit.
I'll bring a bottle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I just want to emphasize, it can be comments on any part of the draft, but obviously the implementation table, I think, is super important.
So we said the 10th to Tom, is that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you write it, make it so I can read it.
We'll take.
Okay, are there any other parts of the draft you want to walk through this evening?
No, it looks good from. Pretty,
it is
it's a real good job.
pretty solid. Few things, but
Well, thank you and appreciate your input. And then we'll be ready to come back with a formatted draft for your July 9th meeting with the correct photos. At that point, we'll review your comments and then decide if it's something that you want to recommend for release. The state requires a 63-day public comment period. And then we would present it to the Board of Trustees and they would release it for public comment. And then come November, we would have hit our 63 days and we will update the draft based on any really obvious comments and we'll provide a synopsis of those comments. And then we would potentially hold a public hearing and then potentially the Board of Trustees would consider adopting the plan in December. So preliminary kind of timeframe. We don't have to be held to that, but that's one way that this could go.
On the pictures, do we have to have permission from the people if you put somebody's like personal residence in there?
We generally use publicly available images that are not copyright infringement. So if someone's, usually those things come up because someone's listed their home for sale and they've checked the box. But we try not to just go out and take photos of people's homes without them knowing or having any sort of permission. All
So
right.
you're thinking public hearing when?
The public hearing would be in November after a 63-day.
That's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the comment period would be open for people to provide comments, which hopefully would reduce the amount of comments during a public hearing. But by November, we would have those comments ready.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Well, thank you all so much and
Thanks,
look
Jane.
forward to your comments and discussing it further in July.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Shane.
Yes, that.
That clock is 23 minutes.
Hmm?
That clock is 23 minutes behind.
Okay.
So yeah, my phone here, that's why.
Yeah.
We heard the other day it was wrong. So, yeah. You weren't here. Wasn't.
Which meeting?
I have to go to the break in this.
Oh, the steering committee?
Yeah.
I wasn't. I already had one that month, I said, I did it 2 a month.
Actually. The septic.
Oh, the septic? Yeah. No.
I don't have any anything to add to the proposed zoning changes. Jason's not here tonight. Jim talked to him and it sounded like he didn't have anything. He waiting on Hess, the attorney, to give an opinion on a couple of things, I guess. So.
Thought we were all in kind of agreement with all that anyway.
Yeah, but there was some things that he wanted the attorney to look at that he was proposing. So is everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Yep.
I have a question. If there's a change in zoning ordinance, does that go through us? Any ordinance? I mean, do we do that or does somebody else do that?
We do that. We do zoning changes, amendments
Amendments.
or new zoning, all that. And it goes through hearings and
Because I know that across my desk today came proposed wording change from the police department regarding junk ordinance. Does that fall under that or is that the police powers one that?
pretty sure that's a police power ordinance.
Okay. All right, all right,
So our thing is just anything with the zoning ordinance. We would,
okay. Okay.
just like you
I
said.
think that's police power ordinance.
Yeah,
I think that goes,
I guess it wouldn't come to us then.
goes straight to you, the township.
Board,
Yeah,
yeah.
because yeah, like.
Gotcha.
Can I ask one general question? Jim, you might know the answer to this. A lot of these projects that were at the end of the report, I mean, there's pages and pages of what we can be doing. It looks to me like it costs a lot of money and takes a lot of people to do those things. So the thing that came to mind to me is, like, at some point in time in the near future, we're gonna be done paying for the marina, aren't we? Is there a date that everybody knows about or everybody knows about? You do? So is there a date when that'll be done and what kind of cash flow would that change so we could support some things maybe that are included in what the plan is that we're making now?
Support, you mean something outside of Parks and Rec?
Yeah, I mean, the things that are here, like some of these things working with various, I can't tell you exactly what they are without looking at them, but projects to do various things. Reviewing maximum impervious surface standards, maintaining township participation in the Cut River Dam District, partnering with the Michigan DNR to support and grow boat. I know that boat inspection thing could be a big deal. So they were only looking for $3 million to try to do boat washes on Higgins Lake.
Well, I can tell you that our board is looking at infrastructure needs for the marina, which is what we're intending to use that excess money for. At least that's what the plan is right now.
So that's like something, an in the works goal about once we get to a position where we have more cash available in that marina situation, we can use it to improve it.
The marina,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
not the dam.
Would you mind telling me when that note comes due or whenever?
We got like 3 years left on it,
3 years?
right, off the top of my head.
All right, thank you. I've asked that question before and every year the answer is 5 years. So at least 3 years. I don't get close.
Off the top of my head, I believe is there are 3 more year payments on it.
All right, thank you.
Good.
Mhm.
Okay, let's look at, you should have all had a copy of the proposed septic ordinance that we received from the Health of Higgins Lake.
Was there copies here available to look at, or was it just what we printed out? I didn't print one out. I don't have one. I didn't know if she left.
You guys didn't get?
I got it.
These were at the last meeting.
Yeah, you sent something out. There was a change that you sent out a couple days ago. There was a septic ordinance thing you emailed out a couple days ago. I didn't
drafted
print
up
that
a
one.
Sample one, just so we could see what a total ordinance would be. What the Health of Higgins Lake sent us was more or less outline of what they thought should be in an ordinance.
Right. The last time they sent it, and then they're going to go back and split it up into 2 and then give us one.
That's what they're thinking, yeah, or something.
That's not gonna happen.
So what I'm looking at.
Okay,
tonight
so there's
is
no
just to
new-
review what they sent us and see if there's anything you disagree, agree, or where you want to go with this. You don't have that?
Is it, how many copies, how many?
I have been one.
He's got his, I got mine.
I did.
I got one.
I've got one.
Okay, everybody's got one.
Yeah.
I missed the copy.
Septic system ordinance.
I don't know yet.
Would have been with the agenda this.
I have the thing that Jim put in this last time.
No.
Well, you talking about the thing he just printed and sent us?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a hard copy of that.
Do you need one?
Yes.
Yeah, that was the one I created. I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Higgins Lake. You don't have that one? We can share.
Yeah, this was a lot different than this.
Yes.
Well, yeah. But I thought, they sent us this in, and so I thought we'd kind of go through it. Their section one was just a title, kind of long title, but it works. The purpose is to protect the public health, safety, and welfare by regulating the systems. I didn't have any problem with what they had there, more or less. The any comments on that, or? I mean, I can read them if you want me to read them.
I didn't have any questions about it.
To see if Jim was coming back.
He's here.
No, he was getting me a copy.
Oh, that Jim, I thought you meant, that Jim was here.
So what page are you on right now to start that?
Cover page.
May have
That's fine.
marked on that, so it's.
It's yours too. Slightly. Basically, your purpose is to protect the public health, safety and welfare by regulating on-site water treatment disposal systems, private wells, water supplies, preventing groundwater and surface water contamination, and ensuring safe drinking water. Protections for all the lakes and streams, wetlands, and groundwater recharge areas, and the reduction of nutrient and pathogen loads in the water supply. Any comments on that? Purpose?
No. Can I ask a question though, Jim? Just so I understand the big picture.
If you want to join us, you could. It's up to you.
Yeah, because I know last meeting, they're talking about possibly 2 phases or 2 sections of this, but then I heard Jim just say that's not going to happen. So I don't know if that's still a thought.
This is just what I think outline.
Yes,
There'll be the.
we have, technically, we have,
Received any formal.
that's what,
Well,
Yeah.
we did.
Yeah, we did.
well, he talked about last week, or last month.
Give it to the. That's from Tom. That's not.
That was, he emailed that out a few days ago.
But is this the health that Higgins Lake?
No,
No.
no.
About the one you got?
One with the blue top on it, it says,
Okay, I got that.
forwarded to the planning commission. Rev 6.2. That's what the Health of Higgins Lake forwarded to the steering committee. I mean, the septic committee forwarded to the steering committee, which forwarded to the township board, which then forwarded to the planning commission for your review. That should be the one with the blue top on it. And that's as far as we've gone. Now, the ball's in your court, so.
Well, I just thought we'd go through this and verify or review and see if there's anything that we think is over the top, under the top, overdone, underdone. I do that.
Go over this one, over this one.
One you got? Which one you got? Yeah. 6.2.
Yeah.
So was there going to be another draft?
I went through this one.
Where did this one come from that you attached?
I created it,
Okay,
but I wanted to go through what they said first, and then we could look at that.
I read that thinking
Yeah,
it was.
yeah, I'm the same way.
Right.
I went through this.
I knew it was a different format. I didn't realize you changed it. Okay. All right, now I'm getting it.
Basically, I wanted to I did a quick draft one. And I tried to make sure I, everything that they expressed in their document. But it's more in an ordinance form where theirs is not.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
So my thought is, I did a little checklist that's he had in this, that they had. Of,
Jim, have you seen what he did? He did, okay.
I can't find it. Oh, it's in a different page, another document. So, I mean, if you want to jump some other place.
No, I read that and proofed it today, thinking it was the exact same wording as this, just in another format. I didn't go back and double check, but you.
No, I started reading and
realized-
realized this is not, this is not.
So, and I tell you, the one that would know better than anybody, you probably know, is if this excludes or includes something that you.
I saw that 4 hours ago. Was the first I saw it, and I read through it. And that's the first I'd seen of it. So all I knew was this document was in front of the planning commission from the township board.
Right.
This is what we sent forward to the planning commission to review. And after that, like I said, I saw that copy just a little while ago. That second copy. So
Okay, so Tom, you might as well just go through it point by point.
I think we should go through what the
Planning commission.
planning commission, yeah,
Right.
yeah,
This one. Or the-
yes.
there was one question that Mike, you had that there was two that I mentioned that earlier. I might have come from me in the beginning when I said there was a opportunity to split this into two pieces. Is that what you're referring to? Okay. I-
B1, actually, this was not.
I did.
At the end,
Yeah.
that was confusing, so I was thinking we were gonna get.
Yeah, let's
Right
just
here
get past that. We
and
took
two
that back to the septic committee and took a look at it and said, this is what we want to present to you. So, yeah. Yep. Right. Right.
Okay, anybody got any problem with it?
No.
With the purpose, meaning the first line or the.
Section 2.
Section 2.
Purpose.
Page 3.
Right, well, I'm still looking at page 2, because I had down here in the very end, the last, second to last, it says the stricter standards prevail if there's a conflict. Who is it that's gonna decide if somebody's standards?
That's in the executive summary, and that'll probably show up later. So,
Okay,
but just to keep
All right.
everybody on the same page. Stricter standards prevails if there's a conflict with the health department. Okay, that's your question.
and then if we're now on page 3. Question I had on page 3 was under section 3, the supervising authority. The health department is a designated enforcement and evaluation agency. How can they enforce? What can they actually do or not do? I mean, my understanding of what the health department can get done is it's fairly weak. So, and I thought there was a lot of things in here that were more strict than weak. I didn't know what the health department would do about it. Just in general.
I don't have an answer.
Okay, philosophically, the health department has their health code that is established at, level 50. I'll just make that up. And we don't necessarily, our committee didn't necessarily agree that level is what we want for Gerrish Township. For example, they say that if your septic tank is at, it is normally required for 750 gallons. If it's at 600 gallons or 500 gallons, it's acceptable. I'm not too sure we're comfortable with that. If your drain field is at, it is required at 330 square feet, if it's only at 250 square feet, we're not too sure we're comfortable with that. So we think it should say at 330 square feet for a drain field. So therefore the ordinance would say 330 square feet, and that's what we want people to comply with. The health department is going to go, well, okay, you comply with our code, our health code at 250 square feet. But Mr. Homeowner, you don't comply with Gerrish's. So therefore you need to, you comply with ours. We're not going to sign off on it. You don't get an approval for your system until you meet Gerrish's. That's kind of a theme through the whole thing where we need to be, where we feel we need to be more stringent. We come up with a stricter code, and even though it's stricter than the health department, that's what we want people to comply with. Now, the health department will come by and say, okay, fine. You're not with ours, but we're not going to issue you a permit until you comply with Gerrish's. And we have talked that through with them, and that seems to be the way it will work out, okay, with the health department. The actual details, the mechanics of how that comes together yet to be worked out, but that's the idea anyway.
Okay.
And so that same question will come up on through the ordinance, I think.
So in essence, basically what we're saying is they can be the evaluation agency in all these matters, and they can defer to the townships if it's more strict and they understand, and they would be the evaluation person at that point.
That's right. The enforcement, they're the evaluation piece, and they'll make the evaluation. The enforcement's going to rely back on Gerrish Township.
Okay.
Some way, shape, or
That was
form.
kind of
So,
like-
Yet
so
to
the
be
limit to
determined.
their control is not granting a permit. Is that what?
Once more.
So, I mean, they're not going to enforce it, but they also won't grant a permit.
Right. Not until
Okay.
it complies with Gerrish's
Okay.
ordinance.
That explains the confusion, because I heard they wouldn't enforce it, they wouldn't enforce it. I didn't, that clarifies.
Yeah,
it.
they'll evaluate it and tell you what it takes to comply with Gerrish's, and then once it does comply with Gerrish's, they will sign off on it. It's going to be up to us to say, here's what you got to do to get into compliance, and
Okay.
until that happens.
So we have something like we have with short-term rental. We have a person designated.
Yeah.
To do, X amount of time, we would probably designate somebody from the building and zoning.
Yeah,
Thing
to-
to be that, but it wouldn't be Jason, it wouldn't be the health department, it'd be an actual position that would have to.
To be determined. Yep.
Okay.
Definitions. I don't know if we need to go through those at all. They were
No.
somewhere in here. They're gonna be pretty cut and dried, I think.
Yeah.
Section 5. Basically, the ordinance is going to apply to all well and septic systems within the township. Public
Marcus,
water
we-
supplies
Yeah,
are
we don't
not-
have any public water supplies, right?
Yes, we do.
We're,
Um, the camp, which one is it?
Cornelia?
Not Lakeside, but
Oh, I
Cottage
guess
Grove.
Cottage Grove has got one. That's right.
they have their own water.
Cottage Grove's got their own public water system between the supplies their places. So
I didn't know.
I just learned that myself just recently. So,
Been there for 40 years or more. Wow.
and I wonder if during the actual letter of the law, if places like the township park, if that's considered a level 2, it doesn't say level 2 wells, but if they are considered public.
You got a public drinking thing, you might be falling under that.
Yeah, right, right.
Typically, they get inspected and that type of thing. And
The health department takes a pretty good
water
pretty good
testing.
watch of those. They look after them pretty close. So.
Well, so my question about that too is going to be like I used to have a business that was on a well. And so that was considered, my business was considered to be a public water supply. So I had to do testing differently than a homeowner.
Right.
So does that mean that all the businesses that are in Gerrish will have different standards?
Well, I'd certainly have to look at what their restrictions are, but I have a business too, and the only people that are in there are my direct employees, and I don't think that qualifies. But if the public can come in and use that public water supply, I think you step over the line to where now the health department takes a different look at it.
They require just additional testing.
Yeah.
Is what they would do.
Okay.
More often.
Testing schedule would be
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
I dealt with it.
they should know Who needs to be tested
The health department
via
would,
the
that-
permits?
yeah, that would be the health department would deal with
Well,
each of
any-
those individually or,
Anybody's restaurant or
Yeah.
hotel or
Yeah.
anything like that.
Well, that's definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Higher standards.
So there are going to be different standards then for certain businesses and so forth than there would be for just the
Yeah.
general ordinance.
But this ordinance wouldn't apply to that. Connection to a public sewer, if one becomes available, pretty straightforward.
Did you put that in yours? Because I don't remember seeing the second one.
I don't know. I'd have to look.
Is that required to be in there?
it ended up there and it survived a couple of edits because it was boilerplate from somewhere else. So, and it's come up before the questions come up, it didn't seem to me like it did a lot of harm, but I don't think it lends much to this ordinance really either. So I think it could go either way. You could
I mean, 'cause if
certainly
you
strike it.
Put a public sewer in, I think the requirements are that you have to hook up.
I'll-
I mean, you don't use that ordinance to.
Yeah, just statutorily, I think it just allows you to, if another one's available, then you don't have to comply with this one. That's all it's saying. And, I think the legal beagles.
Typically, if there's a grant or some program that's financing it, they're going to require everybody, that be part of the deal because they
Yeah.
need revenue
Yeah.
to support the system.
Yeah, you're not going to be able
So-
to say, I'm just going to stick with my septic
So
system.
the bonding agents require that.
Yeah.
They're going to say everybody gets on it.
But I guess what I'm saying is like, if you have that, you created an ordinance for the sewer, which requires everybody to hook up. You don't necessarily have to have it in the police powers ordinance for the septic. I don't know if it does anything to.
Yeah, I don't, I
And I
agree.
don't-
I agree. I'm not too
The
sure.
only other thing I could think of is, let's say somebody puts in a cluster, or what do you call it?
Mhm.
System in a neighborhood,
Mhm.
and it would be, you wanted them to, you had one guy that doesn't want to hook up, but you got 9 people that want to do it.
He can't, without this clause, he couldn't refer back to this ordinance and say, I'm just going to stick with what I got.
Exactly.
This clause should stay, so he compels him.
Nice to this or not.
Yeah.
That's the scenario that I can see, but as far as putting if somebody was gonna do like what they were attempting to do, I think the ordinance for that assessment or whatever it was would encompass all the properties.
It'd probably take
to hook up
care of it on the other side.
regardless. This,
Like I said, I couldn't figure out how it did any harm, so I've just continued to leave it in there. That's all when the questions come up a couple times. So
Okay. Number 7, registration and permitting.
This might not be a fair question, but under point 2, it says no person shall construct, install or alter. But without obtaining a permit, but what if it's reported that somebody has? I mean, who gets involved with that or who referees that or enforces it or what have you? And I'm saying this because I know of situations that I've been told where people see other people fixing their own septic systems in the middle of the night on on Saturday night or something like that in the summer. And they would report that person, but then what do?
well, I think it's important to know that this document that's right here has still got some room for dealing with a lot of that stuff. The details, the devil's in the details, like they say. And exactly how this police powers ordinance captures that person and identifies what's the problem is, and who identifies it. It's not me. It's not somebody in the front desk here. So those things have to be worked out. How are we going to have the appropriate person identify that problem and write up the appropriate paperwork that gets it to the police department, who can then issue citations and move forward into district court.
It almost calls for there to be some person in
Yep.
some job that
Well,
really interfaces.
We've already identified that the health department's the enforcer.
I thought there might have to be
Then-
someone in Gerrish Township.
Well, what I'm saying is Gerrish Township, if a complaint came to the township should just turn around, forward that complaint to the health department, and the health department would then investigate it.
Well, the health department will investigate it, and acknowledge that there's a problem from their professional perspective.
Well, they deal with it from then on. I
No.
don't get that.
I don't think so. I think I disagree with you, Tom. They would say, okay, yeah, true, unless they comply with the current health code. If they apply with the health department's health
Well, yeah,
code,
If there's no.
but if they don't, and we move forward and it gets past their health code and into what we're dealing with, now it becomes up to us to enforce it. And I think we need to be in a,
No, I think for the enforcement part, under the police powers ordinance, it would fall back on the PD to go after them civilly. I think that's the idea behind the police powers. But
Well, that would
you're
only
right
be
about
if they
their-
wouldn't comply with the health department's order.
Their action may be in non-compliance right from the get-go. I mean, if they're trying to work in their own system, that
Right. I mean, it's got to start with the health department. They're.
Yeah. The health department's going to say you're in violation for this reason. Under our code, you are, or maybe are not, but under Gerrish's code, you are in violation for this reason. And you need to, and then notify us. And now that part has to be worked out about how we have the right people that can follow that through to make sure that it gets, it gets addressed.
I really would like to have the lady from the health department.
Yep.
Sit in our meeting, that whatever we could schedule her to
She would be happy to.
go.
And
She
she's,
offered that at the Health of Higgins Lake level. I think it'd be very informative for us to understand, and she offered to help us write this ordinance.
Yep.
I think we
and
should.
she has a copy of it. She said, I have comments, but all in all, she was in general agreement with what we've submitted to you guys. And she is willing to come. Taylor Irwin's her name. She's happy to come and talk with you whenever. I'm sure she'd make an evening meeting or whatever. So
What was their name?
Taylor Irwin.
Well, the sample ordinance that I created, there is a whole section there on enforcement. Penalties are civil infraction. In this particular case, it was $5,000 of fine of not more than 5,000 for not complying. End up going to court. The action is by the township with them, taking somebody to court with that, back to that bottom. So because this deals with the title transfer thing too. So, so there's a sample of enforcement and penalties and actions in that. So let's move on through. I think C in section 7 is important, that the health department notify Gerrish of all approved systems and all actions so that we don't get this. We're not having complete records. I mean, years ago, the health department lost a bunch of their records due to mold and mildew, flooding, one of their old offices and all that sort of thing. Having duplicate copies, I think, would be very prudent. Section 8, inspection and maintenance, a baseline period. I agree with that. It's the only way you're going to get a place to start on every property, whether it be at least a timeline and know what's there.
Should there be a timeline in there? Like,
Well, this one is this systems without documentation or inspection in the last 20 years must obtain one. I'm not so sure I agree with that.
Timing?
But well, I guess what I'm thinking, what I don't agree with is no, I don't have a problem with that. I'm sorry. That's okay.
Well, I thought you wrote in yours 10, but maybe I'm.
yeah, that's what I saw too. Page 4 and when you wrote, Tom, there's 10. I thought.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
I'm sure.
not go there right now, though.
Okay.
Let's go to B, Okay, C,
Just for clarification, were there discussions about that timing and what was the pros and cons of, and how you came up with that number?
Frankly, I think it was, you pick a number and, get it out in this forum and see what happens. I'm not sure. 20 sounds like a long time.
It does.
Because we'd like to have things more, more current than that. So
That's kind of what I thought when I read
Yeah.
it.
well, you're talking about just systems that don't have any documentation.
that's where we want first, those that have nothing,
Right.
that have no data whatsoever. And by the way, I looked at that today and if I just did it for somebody else. It was, about half, it might be 60% of the properties do not have a record at the health department. It might be 50%, but it's in the middle someplace. There are a lot of them out there we have no information on.
And there's some information, but not much information.
No, you
Yeah.
go through and you
Yeah.
get the information and now and you take it a step further and you find that of those 1,100 properties that don't have or that have information, about half of those have got their septic tanks have an average of 400 gallons. So now you start to get into compliant or not, performance issues, how well do these properties conform? So it's important to get this data and so we can understand where people sit and how big this problem really is. That's the biggest piece of this is
So eventually you're
inspection.
gonna contact home,
yeah.
ask them if they've had an inspection and have a copy of that inspection, because that would start some documentation.
I'd like to see that's where we get back to, what Mike was saying there. What I had mentioned earlier before was to split this up in two pieces where you could compel people to get their inspections done. And if they're more than 20 or more than 10 or whatever that number is, they need to get another inspection. If they have nothing on, then we need to get that one done for sure. So we get the information in and we can see where they stand. Now, some of those are going to come back in and they're going to fail. They're going to be in bad shape. And then so now that'll add to those that we already have that are in bad shape. And we can move forward with what the next step is. Some of them are going to be fine and they're going to be good for the next 20 years. And kind of the same thing with water wells that people that, that's a whole nother component, but it's similar. So that's a big piece of it is we want to get people's properties inspected, their septics inspected, so we understand what's out there. And, that's the first piece that really needs to be done.
I consider making that totally outside of the ordinance.
Well, we're certainly open to suggestions. We talked about it at the septic committee. We said, should we make this 2 ordinances? And that didn't go over very good. Should we make it a single ordinance that's got 2 parts to it? That made more sense, but I'm not sure exactly how we get there, but that's a sort of a dilemma.
Some board come down with some kind of, okay, here's a new regulation, so it's only owned by the state. Yes, yeah, I'm thinking, but I haven't.
What do you call it? What do you call that? I mean, it's
Executive order.
yeah. Okay. All right. Well,
No, no,
we can give that a try. What do you think, Jim?
No,
we
I
get-
mean,
yeah,
there's
I know.
Saying here's an ordinance.
Yeah.
That say, as of this date, everybody's got to do this or.
No, we're all ears. That
I
would
think
be.
those are called ordinances though, aren't they?
I think they're called ordinances. Yeah, that's where we get back to. I think so.
Okay, so.
Can I say something? As I'm looking through this, obviously some of this needs to be fleshed out. I'm kind of thinking when we hit a section and say, does that need more, more details than just identify, and then we can work on that next time. It's sort of what I'm thinking. Instead of just talk about it, say, okay, yeah, section, whatever, section, 6 needs or 5 needs, is going to need more work, more development, that we just identify that so we know we're working with and not going through this again next time. That's what I'm saying. I don't know what you guys think, but that's.
That would be okay with that.
Even if we just did that to know that what we gotta, work on drafting.
Well, that's, yeah, make notes. I mean,
Yeah, okay.
Number C, must obtain a final inspection and of your permit and approval and all that. Well, that's standard stuff. Require periodic inspection and pumping schedules. That's where you're seeing the 10 in that document of mine. Checklist, reporting forms, all that stuff. That'll be part of the policy. That'll have to all be developed. And there's forms out there already that people are using for that stuff. So the periodic inspection would be how long would you go between a required inspection? And the issue there a bit, and I'm sure you guys discussed it, was seasonal use. It's not the same as everyday use. And there's the rub that you'll come up against a little bit.
Yeah.
But, most systems, in my mind, when they fail, they failed. There's usually odor and seepage because it's a drain field that typically fails.
Yeah.
You might have a tank fail and leak. But that's fairly rare. But the field will fail, and when it does, you'll know it.
And we could probably get, some guidance from the health department about what they're, especially, in Gerrish, what they think is good for this, as far as.
Well, I'll give you an example. It wasn't a new house, but it wasn't that old. I'm going to say we were doing some remodeling on it. So I'm staying in this. Can't remember now, 15, 20 years old. And they had a failure. And basically all it involved was digging up the end of the field where the seepage was, extending it and making it larger, making room, put it back, and haven't had a problem since. So it's you just don't know what you're gonna run into.
The health department approved that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Back in the day, I heard recently that if your field fails, you're replacing the whole field. But so, the devil's in the details, what's going to work out? What's going to be the.
Well, if that place was 500,000 feet from the lake, I mean, that's where I'm concerned is like failure, like Tom's talking about, is when you can see it and smell it and it's bubbling up. But if you've got something that's just seeping down through into the aquifer, you're not gonna see that or smell that.
Yeah, but that's how systems work. That's how a septic system works.
Yeah, but if
It's
it's
fluent is pulled into a bed and it mixes into the groundwater and seeps down through it, and the movement through the sands and stuff are supposed to filter. Unfortunately, Michigan sands and our earth doesn't do a good job of it. Because the water moves too fast. The filtering and the biology.
And I think
And-
maybe what Jim's referring to,
Biologics.
your ground can actually become saturated to the extent where it's.
That's a failed system.
So that would be a case like what Jim mentioned, where it would just be running right through and into the aquifer.
Well-
We're not gonna know that. I don't know.
Well,
I
that-
didn't know
that's
it
where
where she went
it's
out there and
coming up.
tested the field.
Right.
So
Now it becomes surface water. It's not even in the ground. You're coming up through a hydraulic.
Are there
I-
records that we have currently from when people have things done? Are these all, like if you have your tank pumped, does Sergeant or Scott's or anybody, do they send records to somebody? They send
Yeah,
it to
Just the health department. Health department gets it.
Okay.
Every time they pump, they do?
I think so. They're supposed to send a record to the health department. That's my understanding. So.
Well, there you go. It would be, even if they haven't had, if there's no record somewhere along the line, they probably got pumped
Yeah.
in the last 20 years. Not necessarily.
I don't know.
I've been seasonal usage.
I mean, I should certainly follow up on that, but it was my understanding that under an ordinance anyway, that they would get notified as a matter of course every day. If every one of them does today, I guess I'd better check on that to be sure. So, yeah. That could be misleading.
I can't remember. I mean, I have mine done every so often and
Off on that
all I
tangent.
know is they come and they leave and I.
The thing is, on yours, well, on anybody's, you had an inspection and there was an actual inspection done back some time ago. But that data that I've seen does not get updated with every pump. If you've had multiple pumps, I only know about one thing on your property, and that's the fact that it was inspected. So
Okay.
once again, trying to get to the, so we collect all that data and just getting a property pumped doesn't show up, I guess, is that being pumped in our fields. But if there's an inspection on it, that's what we're tracking. So
Okay, so
so
the question becomes, how detailed are you
Yeah.
going to make an inspection?
And I think most of the required pumping does not require an inspection. So for instance, those people come out and their job does not have to do with inspecting how well something's working. It's just getting rid of it.
I think I disagree with that.
Well, I know they don't
Because they're-
inspect they don't inspect my stuff in any way. And I can see them do that every couple of years.
Well, they're pulling the lid,
Yep.
we're seeing your outflow, and they're checking the water level just visually.
But in the inspections that were done in Lyon Township, there were things that were required, like running water and seeing the water come through and things of that nature. And some inspectors were doing it and others were not.
Right.
So I just wonder if that's supposed to be a part of it, or if the pumping requires that, or if that gets noticed.
I think it's what we have to kind of
we have
develop,
not,
right?
we haven't detailed with that requirement. That's, yet to do. So
Okay.
Lions did it once you were a part of that inspection process in Lyon. They came in and they needed to do certain things. Some of the inspectors did a little more work than others, but everybody did. If it got presented back to the health department, everybody got at the minimum level. They were able to inspect tanks without pumping them, and I can't for the life of me figure out how that works. But they were able to, pass that inspection that way. And I would like to see, an inspection would require the pumping of a tank. So you can take a look at the whole tank and see what it looks like. If the bottoms broke out of it, I think that's something you ought to know.
Absolutely.
And
Large crack.
Some tanks got, baffled or some other things in it. You can't see that unless you take the lids off tanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get-
I'm not talking about pulling the lid to go put the hose and suck the stuff out.
yeah, if there's another baffle in there and you can't see past the other end, that, that.
Yeah. Oh.
Right.
They've had pump every couple of years. They looked down and said, yeah, you've got something wrong, maybe scrapes and stuff off. That's the extent of it. They may report it, after they leave, but there's something. Oh, did you put the hose in, plug it out, move on?
So anyway, we agree that you can require inspections periodically of some type and checklist and stuff. And then you're going to award some kind of classification indicating their level of compliance. So that's like, if they require 1,000 tank now and it's a 500, you'll
Well,
make note of it.
Actually, that's left over, or the current position of the septic committee is that we would classify them as the kind of condition that they're in and give them a rating give each property a rating based on a whole litany of criteria. And we're kind of moving past that, I think. I'm not too sure that's the right way to go about it. I think it's better to start with that we identify the information we don't have and classify properties that way. We have all your demographic information from everybody. You're 100% there. So we know what everybody's property is, the location, the property ID, that kind of stuff right from the assessor. But the next step would be, what kind of information do we have from the health department? And the next step would be, what kind of information do we have from your well? And maybe the next step is, what kind of information do we have on the water well testing? Those were the 3 or 4 things that should should identify, we're thinking now that would be a better way to look at this. That's the way we should evaluate properties is the compliance with, yes, your inspection's done for your septic. Yes, your well inspection's done. And yes, you've had a water well tested. Once those things are all compliant, man, you're good to go. You may not be compliant. You may not be perfect with everything, but at least we've got your information.
What's the difference between
So-
things with, wow.
One was the inspection. Well, there were inspections with, that we gathered the information about the type of well, the depth of it, what kind of material it is, if it's a 5-inch well versus a 2-inch well, that well inspection versus a water well test. And where we actually tested the water to see what kind of nitrates and bacteria are in that well test. That would be an interesting piece to know as well from a public health perspective. So, what was that item, Tom? Where was that? Design item E, assigned a classification indicating their level of compliance with the ordinance. I think that level of classification that we were originally talking about, because this has just changed in the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about it. That was going to be a score that got you. We felt it kind of got subjective where, well, just because if you were a homesteaded property, meaning you were here all the time, you got less points than if you were a non-homestead and weren't here all the time. It just got too difficult to really make that fair for everybody. So I think we're starting to think about just going back to, getting these properties in compliance with inspections. And that's the first place to start. We'll probably score properties as we go along. So we start to evaluate the size of the tank and the size of the drain field and the date that you put your well in and your septic and everything, so that, we get a better feel for exactly where it is, but after we get the compliance done. So
I like that idea though. Score it after. I mean,
Yeah, I
we
think
have
so.
some real hard data to.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
I mean, we'll spend all our time trying to explain the methodology and coming up with this scoring system. And I think we need some more time to work through that as we get a little more data in there.
Smart move. Yeah.
Brown Star.
Yeah.
I guess my first thought is, do we need all of that? Until you guys say, here's our inspection list, and if it's 2 pages long, it seems like it's going to be a little overkill.
You mean the classification piece of it you're talking about?
Well-
Is it overkill, or even the 4 items I mentioned?
No, I mean, the inspections are fine.
Mhm.
But it's just, I don't know, the whole.
Yeah.
You're an A, you're a C.
Yeah. Well, in order to comply with the ordinance, you need to have those 4 things done. That's all. I don't think we label anybody as an A, B, C, or D, but you've got 3 of the 4 done, or 2 of the 4 done. And I think that's where now you need to go get the last 2 done. That's what the ordinance should compel people to do.
I mean, when I remember looking at Lyon's results that the health department put out, right? They had some things that were pretty serious and some things that weren't. I mean, right?
Mhm.
That are more problematic than others. I mean, so did you take kind of that information and put a score on it, or put a
Well,
priority on it, or I don't know how you.
I
Yeah, I know.
I think we just, if you go get your inspection done,
Mhm.
of the 5 pieces of the demographics are good. The septic inspection, that's 1. Of the
Mhm.
well inspection, that's 2. And the well testing,
Mhm.
that's 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Mhm.
The scoring of each of those, your septic system may come back as really pretty crummy, and for a couple of reasons. But that's not what we're looking for. Afterwards, we can take a look at, boy, we got to take another look at why your system is in such bad shape. And it's because you've got a 250 gallon septic tank and 150 foot of drain field and you got 3 bedrooms. You know, that's causing a problem. And now how do we deal with that? But
And you could potentially use like a 2 score thing, just say percent complete, and it's gonna be 25, 50, 75, or 100.
percent of what?
For what you just mentioned. Of
Those items,
4
yeah.
items, you could just call
Oh, yeah,
You're-
okay.
25% in
You're
compliance.
20
Yeah, okay.
it,
Yeah.
you're 75%, you're 75% complete,
Mm-hmm.
and you could have a couple different general categories, like, you know, bad, medium, good, something like that, and say, and then for each of those subcategory things, you could have maybe, okay, bad contains at least, or
Yeah.
these 5 things, or 2 or more of these in the good, and then just basically you're 75% complete with category with.
I think we also got to be
moderate
careful.
Category that would just, that you don't specify the thing, but it just gives you a general thing. So
Yeah, I think that would be helpful to get a real, you know, a better understanding, a more detailed understanding of where we are. But we also got to, you know, who's going to do that evaluation? We need to have the right people, the professionals that can make that evaluation. It's not me. It's nobody in this office. It's, you know, so I think we got to figure out how that goes too. But
Let's move on to section 9. Setbacks, construction standards. You got a 100 feet from any surface water, 50 feet from any drinking water system. That's. Is the 100 feet stronger than the health department?
I don't think so. I think that's the health department.
That's health department too.
I think so.
Yeah, I looked at it, but I can't remember, but okay. Then you got, unless a variance is granted under section 15 of this ordinance, which.
Yeah. And you guys are this is going to be a wrestling match with the zoning pieces, you know. Maybe it won't be. Maybe you guys have got some great ideas about how to do that, but I think it's going to be one of the biggest stickling point is how to, and who grants these variances.
The section 15 of variances. Jump ahead. You got R1, RA, 1A, so those are the lake properties, high density. Average.
It reads the only variances are if it's a stricter install, right?
Well, maybe only considered for the incorporation of technology that improves or enhances the overall operation. More restrictive requirements may include the use of best available technology. Not currently contained in this ordinance.
If you're required to have,
Got into those biofactory things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are. Because one of the problems with no, I won't be, never mind. So you're saying they could.
if you've got a 600 gallon tank, 700 is required. Let's stick with drain fields. If you've got 330, if you've got 250 square foot of drain field and 330 is required. And the only way you're going to get a variance for it is to install an advanced treatment system, some sort of an aerobic or anaerobic. I think it's aerobic system that goes through and you know, mechanically treats that stuff, the air infiltrates it. And then you can, the manufacturer can demonstrate that you have brought your inadequate system into compliance with using this technology. That's what we were getting at. Yeah, well, there's a few out there. There's a bunch of them on the island for one. There's 6 or 7 of them on the island. Would you know of another one out someplace here you're talking about on the
Biggest one in was.
They're gonna say the Cut's got a giant one back.
But yeah, yep.
That's an old one. It's been around for 20 years.
I'll try to make it brief, but we had a real application of one that came in 6 months ago where the guy had an undersized field and he was trying to figure out how, just down the road here, and trying to figure out how to make it work. He didn't have enough actual real estate on his property to make his drain field big enough. So he's going, you know, what can I do? And he worked with the health department. They said, well, we don't have any room. You can't go anyplace. And so he said, I'll tell you what, I'll put in an advanced treatment system. And that got him, for the manufacturer, that got him to compliance with a 280 square foot drain field or something like that. So it was a solution that, you know, seemed to work.
The health department does enforce it. We had another client that was over in the Lyon Township area and on the lake, and there was a little creek draining into the lake, and he had no room to redo his septic, so they buried a fiberglass tank, and it was a pump and haul
Mm-hmm.
until those sewers went in.
Mm-hmm.
It was in the camp.
Yeah.
Right.
So, you know, they will work with you.
The argument at the septic committee was there is always a way to make it work, and it might include pump and haul. And that's not a pretty one, but that might be what it takes. That's why the position of the septic committee was for a more stricter ordinance and to deal with it. And we threw it in your lap.
Well, did you guys talk about, I'm reading the setbacks and construction standards section, and if you're out of compliance, because I mean, I have a feeling, I know there are hundreds and hundreds of places that are within 100 feet of the lake. I mean, tons of them. So we find that, what are we thinking? Back to the variances, it's either.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. You can't make those properties uninhabitable. You can't say you
Right.
can't live here because you can't comply.
Right.
You got to find a way to, you know, maybe the first step is advanced treatment,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the first thing to do. And if you can't quite get there with that, then, you know, you've tried everything else. You know, there's got to be some kind of a procedure to.
You're talking about systems that were previously approved.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some cases. Yeah. Most cases. Probably.
There's much you can.
Yeah. Right. So there's that for sure. So.
I mean, you need to identify the issues and then, but I think you're gonna have a hard time.
Yeah.
When it's been grandfathered in more or less to force them to do anything different unless it's failed.
I was just saying now, if it's not in compliance, no matter where it is, right? It's not a location issue. Then what do you do? I have no idea. What would you do? So if it's not working to its capability, what happened? I don't know. I don't mean to get too deep into it.
We've had those same conversations and, we don't pretend to have, it's going to take some more discussion to, you know,
Okay.
get to the bottom of it.
Yeah. And the setback number here from 100 feet, that's setback from the drain field, not the tank. So if
The
the
drain
tank's
field has to be
75
100 feet, the tank can be within 50. I just looked it up.
Okay.
And another big issue that I think is important is the proximity of your wells to your septic
Yeah.
or to your drain field mostly. And, there's certainly going to be places where they're not compliant with that. And now that's next to impossible to fix because there's a reason that well is where it is because there's no place else to put it and you can't get more than 50 feet away from their neighbor's drain field. So whatever the variance procedure is, if there is one or whatever it is to fix these things has got to, you know, cover a lot of ground.
What about people having sharing?
Well, I would assume that a well that's shared by multiple people would still need to have to comply with the proximity to other septic systems.
I know of a case where two different residents, different families,
Yeah.
when they're sharing.
Yeah.
You know, the well goes down to speed.
Mm-hmm.
The other one say, hey, I'll tap into yours instead of redoing mine.
I guess my
Yeah,
first
we've
thought
got
is I
one-
can't imagine that's a problem. That may be a good solution actually, because now you.
I just wonder if there's
found a better
actually a
spot for-
restriction for that, if people.
We haven't
do
talked
that, you have
we
to
haven't
all have
talked
your
about it.
individual
So.
systems.
Yeah, we.
Yeah, there's.
That was a Sunday afternoon job.
No, that was, there's probably a rule about it, but
I agree with you. That's a good solution. It's a
Yeah, it might be. Yeah.
cleaning community well and
Yeah.
the health department. I mean, Like if you do a duplex, you can have both the units tied into one septic
Yeah.
system. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're sharing a system there.
Well, I know we did a couple weeks ago, I helped with the flood damage assessment for the county. And I know of a place, Houghton Lake, they had like 8 buildings that were all separate and actually shared a well
On one well, yeah.
on the west side. And
Does that become a level 2 well and a community well?
I don't know what it was. I mean, yeah, they did it all, but I mean, and actually it was covered by water, so they have to get it all checked out now with that stuff. But the point was they had multiple houses that were sharing a well that was stuff that was done.
The health department may have some
Before.
rules around that. Is just that, yeah, we just need to inspect it more often. You need to get well testing, more people involved and that sort of thing. So
Let's go back to section 9 again, the setbacks. B, basically, it's gonna conform to whatever code is failing, whether it's the
Mhm.
township or the health department. Section 10, inspection, pilot, transfer. I had some things I would change wording on, but basically the premise, it was the same result. I just thought it read better, but,
not to drag this out, but I've been called out on it a couple of times, is that I was accused of opposing time of transfer, I guess, or something like that. I guess I don't remember what it was. And I only suggested that what that was about is that if we're already doing inspections across the board for everything, do we really need time of transfer? And does it really bring anything to the party? That's all I was getting at. So take that for whatever it's worth.
Well, it would help with properties that you don't have any information on, right? It would force them to
And I like,
find it.
I've written, I'm recollecting more of what I read at times versus that, but the thing is, all it does is brings it to the top quicker.
Mhm.
Because if you have had an inspection within the time period, you're exempt from having to have it done at the time of
Anyway.
transfer.
Yeah.
Because you're still in compliance.
that was a 10-year thing.
Yeah, so
If you had an
I think it
inspection
needs to be
within
in there, but
10 years,
you were wrongly accused. That's just.
We-
Change you down the road, right?
I'm sorry.
If you have something in here that you find in the future, you don't need anymore, you can just
Yeah.
change it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like these are set in stone.
We had about 100 transfers, about 100 transfer properties in Gerrish Township last year. And we're talking about 1,200 that need to be, inspected. It doesn't move the needle very far by insisting on time of transfer. They're going to get captured anyway, but it doesn't hurt anything. I mean, it could be in there. I mean, I
Well,
don't.
The first 5 years of implementation of this ordinance, that would, if as a home buyer, I would love to have that.
Yeah.
Because
And I have heard from realtors that say, absolutely, I think that's a great idea and I'm all for it. So whatever.
And keep it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think we need to go through all those items.
Yeah.
Section 11, and private water supply systems testing.
I went through these numbers earlier today for somebody else, a different topic or subject question, and I was surprised. There are how few water well tests we have in the township, and those that we do have, I think the report that I got back was like, there's 250 reports in the health department out of 3,500 residential properties. I mean, it's minuscule. So, and of those, about 25 or something, 25 or thereabouts were nitrate levels higher than 10. And so I mean, it's an issue we need to get to the bottom of. We need to find out what's going on out there. And not only do we need to have, as a public health question. But in general, where are these problems and do they all concentrate in one spot? And are all of a sudden we're finding serious problems in these 5 or 6 wells in one area? Well, we should know that and then try to get to the bottom of it, figure out what it is. So
It'd be interesting to see the depth of those that have high nitrate levels too. The
Yep.
depth of the wells. would be
Exactly.
interesting.
One other thing we're working on is trying to identify the depth of the wells. We're working on kind of the Sovereign Park stuff, the data that's available. And if there's shallow wells at 30 feet that don't penetrate a clay layer, and if those wells have bad tests, well, we can probably start to make some assumptions. And then where the same wells right next door or a couple doors over are at 130 feet deep and they don't have any problems and they're pierced clay layer or 2, then that's good. So that's the kind of information we want to get and make available, and people can make their own investigations and
What was that number you said the health records of?
250, I think, test.
They're not the building permits that were issued within that range of years and see if they kind of jive at all.
Oh,
Because if it doesn't, that means the health department or somebody wasn't doing their job. The well drillers weren't reporting them in or something.
well, yeah, to your
Curious.
point,
I'm
there's
sidetracked.
well, yeah, but to your point though, real quickly, there's like a 1,500 well inspections and 250 well
With nitrate.
reports. Something's not jiving. So it's still a question.
Well,
out
and
there.
if you just get it for a building permit, you don't necessarily need to get nitrates tested, right?
No, if you put in a new well, you're going to get a test. You got to get the water.
For nitrates?
Well, I don't know. if nitrate-
Bacteria anyway.
Yeah, bacteria, because
Both
you didn't have, you had to, when I did mine at Raven, I had. to
That's a
check
good
that
point.
for- Yeah.
I was talking
but
nitrates,
Wells really. Will clay barrier. They're.
Yeah. the new stuff for sure.
You know, there's a well log and he tells you exactly what he drilled through it.
Yeah.
Right.
100 feet.
Yeah.
So and 20 years ago, isn't that long ago? We were doing good records back then.
Yeah.
You should have.
I mean, I could do a more detailed analysis of that to show you what really, because I was talking about nitrates and now
Right.
bacteria is what they're really testing for. So that
Exactly.
skewed those whole numbers. So
Exactly.
When people replace their points, I know I did that a couple times years ago on different places. So I think we had to do a water test for that, but that's not putting a new well in, but that's doing like a maintenance thing on there.
maintenance, I'm not too sure they're required to record that. You didn't need to get a permit for that. You didn't need to get a
No,
well
they
permit. or
came
anything.
in, replaced the
Yeah.
stuff and here's your bill, but I had to do, it might've been because of refinancing or something that I had to have water tests and stuff done and sent.
Well, and just, I think everybody knows, but the Higgins Lake Foundation is gonna pay to have the nitrate tests done. Ordinance, right? Coliform and nitrate nitrites. That'll start June 1st to the end of August.
On everybody's place?
They'll do it.
Anyone, they'll do it
first-
for free. You got
Are
to
they
volunteer.
advertising that anywhere?
Well, yes, they will be. But they'll do your first test. Now, if you got a problem and you want to retest, that'd be on your own. net.
Right, okay.
They do the first.
See, that's a huge project. That's incredible. It's an incredible, great thing for what we need.
Yeah, especially since the flood stuff, there's a lot of people that, some stuff, their wellheads, were underwater. You didn't have a wellhead sticking above, you have them underground. And, they're underground all the time, but after the floods and all this stuff, there a lot of people are affected that probably don't realize they're affected.
People will have, like Greg said, people will have an opportunity now to contact the foundation and get a water well test done for free. And it's their test and they keep the data and the health and the foundation keeps a copy of it and that's it. So that's great. That's great news. That's a great program. So
Just to keep the data too, because then we'll have good data.
Is there any other parts of this that you want to discuss?
There's a couple questions.
Remediation, non-compliance action.
How about the enforcement?
Well, we talked about that.
Well, I'm wondering about the fines for $500 a day up to and
I think-
1,000.
You gotta go to the Police Powers Act, well, that spells that out. Cause it's the same as, my understanding is that falls on the same.
Yep.
Amounts as the STRs to it. And Just gotta,
I would color these numbers as placeholders. You know, we got to get the right number in
Yeah.
there. So
matter of fact, when this gets reviewed by the attorney.
we'll fix that. So.
Right, too.
Yeah, I just wonder from the variance stuff. So you're suggesting here the health department actually does it like the ZBA, they would be, if somebody came in requesting a variance, they would do all the stuff through them formally? Or is that a whole nother entity that would need to be developed or passed over to the ZBA?
I'm afraid it sounds like it's another group that has to evaluate
Okay.
these variances. If it goes, the health department says, well, you meet our code, but now you got to meet Gerrish's. Somebody at Gerrish has got to say, well, here's what's.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. That's why I was thinking, but then this right here says granted by a variance granted by the health department in these zones. So that's the way it's written right now. It seems like they would be the one to do that, but I would think there would actually have to be a separate one for Gerrish.
If we
Yeah.
exceeded the state's requirements.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm just pointing out that there's probably going to have to be some kind of variance board, just like the ZBA, or is it something the ZBA picks up, which
Well,
is,
treating this as an ordinance, then all the ordinances go to you to the CBA.
The ZBA.
well, for zoning.
Mm.
What you're talking about is really zoning.
We'll
But this
change
is-
your name to zoning septic and.
Well, that's it. Right, but I mean,
Yeah.
they don't handle all the other zoning
Septic.
stuff. They handle disputes and some things that we've never done since I've been on, but I mean, it's not to say they can't be done, but I'm just pointing out that's something we need to
Be something we gotta find out.
address.
I think that, I don't pretend to look at this as it's going to be simple. It's
No, I
going
think-
to.
No, I'm not saying, I'm just saying.
It's going to
probably
take
another-
some commitment, and it's going to take some work, and it's going to take, some wherewithal to come up with how this is going to come together. It may take a dedicated individual or individuals, or I would, like I said, we don't have anybody with the expertise at this point to really do it. So to do this evaluation, to identify what variances are approved and.
Who does them now? I thought the state had.
The health department,
list of people qualified for-
the health department,
Yeah.
the health department would do
Inspections.
inspections, but if you ask for a variance, and if we're going to have to get. So then what you're saying is that the health department would then applied to them for a variance to our ordinance. They would deal with a variance to the health code, their health code. But after that, I got a feeling they wash their hands and say, you got to go talk to Gerrish if you want a variance for these higher restrictions, these higher
Right, and
requirements.
I would think the board then a Gerrish board, a variance board for the septic water stuff. They would,
That's
that would be
where
evidence
Mike-
stuff they would use is, okay, what did the health department say? What are their arguments? But
Mhm.
some of the stuff is, they're assessing property differences and, if the health department gives their take on it and their
Mhm.
cut, then the other people may say, I think we'd have a board ourselves that we'd have to handle our own thing.
It seems like it to me, yeah.
I got thoughts on that, but I'm not gonna go there right now.
Okay.
The one I sent you, the full ordinance, okay, full disclosure. This is Torch Lake. This is their ordinance. I changed the name, we're in Gerrish Township, changed a few things, but really, you go look at their ordinance, it's gonna read pretty much just like this. It's
I guess a little more full disclosure is I'm pretty sure that Torch Lake ordinance is what we started with. And
It's very similar.
yeah,
That's why when I read it, I didn't even think to double check back here.
as I said, most of what the Health Aids Lake is requesting is in here.
Yep.
might be in a little different.
We started with the, I started with the Torch Lake ordinance and started cutting and pasting and editing and changing. And pretty soon it felt to me like we got quite a ways away from it. And so we just moved on, but they're the same. They're a lot of the same stuff.
I still like work hand in hand with the health department when we do this ordinance. Either at the end of it or somewhere in the middle.
What are you looking for from them?
Their insight. She offered to help us write this. I think we should take her up on that.
Well, I think we can write it and then
And
have
he-
her review it, critique it.
Well, because they're gonna be the ones working with this, and I just,
It'd be
I
nice
was
to have,
very impressed with when she was, and I think you were at that meeting when she was here. I just think that why, we're gonna be working hand in hand with them. She may have some insight as we progress through this that would be very helpful. We keep coming up with these questions about what if, but she could answer that stuff.
I tell you, they want to be involved in what we're doing here. They think this is, we're a lot farther ahead than a lot of other agencies or municipalities that they work with. And they like what we're doing. They especially like what we're doing with gathering the data and doing the inspections and getting that stuff up front. They're not adamant, but they're really pushing us to get that done before we have the enforcement piece. And so, yeah, they want to be involved. And they look at this as probably, others are going to look to it as well. So
So when do you think you'll have the data filed and reviewable? I guess?
well, I don't have any way to get any more data right now. I mean, until there's an ordinance in effect, that's the other thing too. I mean, until we get,
It needs to be based on some of that data. When you start stepping out of what the state wants or what our health department wants, I guess the health departments regionally they can tweak their standards.
yeah, this is a Central Michigan District Health Department we got to deal with and not
Yeah,
grailing,
I'm
but.
saying the different health departments have different,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, they're similar.
Mhm.
Basically.
Well,
So I'm
Yeah.
getting at is we're gonna require something
inspections.
out of the ordinary. We need to be able to
Well, I can't,
express. the
we
reason.
can't, as a township board, we can't, write a letter off and say, by the way, you guys got to go get this inspection done without having something to, that compels that. So.
Just saying all the data you're collecting on nitrate soils or whatever you guys are doing.
Mhm. The data that we have right now, and there is no new data coming there is, but it's a ways away. It's frankly not even totally identified yet, but the data that we have right now is available to you tomorrow. And it includes when people have their inspections done, what we have on record, and when their wells are inspected, and the demographic data. That's. Mhm. That's all done. That's all done. Yep. Yep. That's all been scanned and it's been reviewed and it's been mapped and it's been entered into the database that we currently have.
And that amount is what percentage of the properties?
50-ish, depending on what piece of it you look at, but.
I feel compelled to say this from my standpoint on the township board, because we alluded several times about, having a secondary inspector, and I think that we so when we do this ordinance, we got to consider, don't automatically assume that, well, we'll just have this new person working for the township to do some part of it, because financially, we may not be in a position to do that. Like say, financially, we are not in a position to do that. So because I know some stuff was floated out
Mhm.
earlier and I just, it'll be a hard sell. So that's something we gotta consider as we're doing this, because we can't just assume that we're gonna encumber the board into hiring.
You know, an eventual ordinance has got to be, it's got to try to meet the needs of the community. But it's also got to be in, you know, be able to administrate it. We got to figure out how we're going to make it happen and who's going to do it and who's going to pay for it. Yeah, or it's got to be tailored to what we have available.
Maybe it's not the perfect solution, but utilizing the health department to do their job.
Yeah.
And it would, even if we don't enhance beyond that, to force them to kick it back at us, but get it right to the edge that we could get it to get the maximum amount out of them.
Yeah, I still think we need to look at all options and.
Well, I'm not saying you can't, but
I know.
we can't write an ordinance and tell the township board that, oh, by the way, the ordinance requires you to hire somebody, because that.
No, I get it. Yeah, I hear you.
Difficult sell.
We got to have a solution for it, from, before it gets to that spot, for sure.
Yeah.
What about just all the administrative details to that too? Is that something that's a budget problem? I mean, there's all the administrative details with handling things like keeping records or anything that has to be done like that, or is that assumed to all be part of the health department right now?
Me? Yeah, it's a consideration. Yeah. I mean, nobody's sitting in an office over here waiting for us to drop this in their lap for sure. So.
Yeah, the short-term rental, we got a person working, what, part-time, 25% or
25 hours. So back is the budget, but
a week?
Yeah.
Yeah, devoted towards that. So
That's
that's a fraction.
It's a pretty
of what this
different,
thing-
that's a pretty different scenario for
No,
sure.
no, but the point.
Yeah, yeah.
It's workload would be, I think.
well.
Right, so,
But the short-term rental thing is gotta.
right. So I mean, this is, that just gives you the scale of this thing would be a lot bigger than what we currently are.
This thing is gonna grow, not gonna.
Mhm.
You got a whole division.
We gotta say and think about that when we're doing this,
That, as Jim said, you look at all the possibilities, but if we kick it back up to the board, and it requires a certain amount of man hours, that's gotta be created and paid for by the township for that. So
How much money are we talking?
somebody threw a big number at me a couple months ago.
I did, but it was, and it was justified, but it's a big number. It's a full-time salary position, that would take,
So give me a
take
ballpark.
100.
So what would happen if we just have an ordinance, gotta get inspected and all that sort of thing? And you just got to meet the health department's requirements.
Yeah, well, I think that,
None of these expansions or anything. And then see how that goes. And you can always add to the ordinance if you find that, hey, we really need that extra check. But at least you'd get something going and
yeah, I think from our perspective, from the septic committee and probably, I think speaking for the health of Higgins Lake, is that we've recommended an aggressive ordinance to get to the bottom of the problems that we think are in the lake, but more importantly, the problems that are potentially there for the public health problems around the country, because we don't know what's out there. That's the way we've looked at it. So, and we've erred to the side of, being a more aggressive. So if that doesn't work, and it might not, then I think you guys will have that collective discussion about, this is not something that fits for the township, or yeah, that's exactly where we want to go. And this is what's important for the township. And ordinance.
But at a minimum, what you want to get out of this is the information. I mean,
As a
that's
minimum.
really what needs to be, to me, what the health agents like in a township needs is information. We need to know what's out there that are failures. Are there contaminated waters, and where if it's concentration, always attribute. And I think as long as the minimum of this ordinance gets that, if I have to set a bare minimum, that's what it is.
At a bare minimum, it is. But if there's nothing to compel people to install good systems and improve their systems, I think we stopped a little short. But for the most part, yeah, the data is what's going to tell us where we are, and people that are just cruising along. I had a conversation today with some people that, so what? What do we need that for? We're not gonna, I don't want to do that. And I spent the next 4 hours writing about, well, yeah, this is why we need to do this. And people don't really. There are some people that just don't care about what goes on. The majority of the people do, but those that don't, are making it difficult to want to get the revenue, the funds that we need to make it happen. And is it something the township should do? I believe it is, and I think there's a lot of people that do. So that's where I'm marching toward.
If we have to have that discussion someday, we have that discussion, but I think we need to do everything we can to make this happen and not being defeatist before we even get it off the ground.
I agree.
Yeah.
And you can always scale it back in the future, right? It's really difficult to scale it up in the future. So you start out strong. It's a lot easier to start out strong than it is in the future. Say, okay, now we have to change, make it more.
Yep.
Yep. Increased inspections.
Are there grants that we're looking at or looking for or anything?
I talked to Catherine today about it, and they're not really anything that she was aware of or that we could lay our hands on that, that would fund this individual or fund, the development of this department or whatever. It didn't seem like that was in the cards anyplace. Usually they're looking for, they don't like to fund salary positions. They want to fund a project that you want to go, build a walkway or something. That they're good with, but not so much with personnel. So. Well, we're probably both in trouble already. So
It's fee-based.
Fee-based, yeah.
Take a fee. Help that.
At least a part of it. No, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this, just my experience around the lake, working with these different organizations. And not even with the organizations, the people around this lake, we could raise that money. I am absolutely convinced we can raise that money. I don't even have a question we can raise that kind of money. If we did like a 2-year program, we're going to have someone for 2 years and we're going to fund this. There's no question in my mind we raise that money with people around the lake.
We just have to have a plan.
Just to have, we need a plan.
The plan's got to be pretty rock solid. And then I agree. I think there are lots of people out there that really want to see this happen correctly, as long as we do it right. So, and then
Well, we
I
can't
think
go
those,
with where we're now. We got to say, this is the plan. This has been thought through. This is it. And I think we'll raise the money a lot quicker than you think. I'm absolutely convinced.
Why did we fail then with this sewer system?
Too big. The money is too big.
Well, and Lions, and they did a joint, they did a joint project with Lion, and that was, that didn't work out. Anyway, so I just, my point, I don't want to give defeatist attitude, and I do think there's funds.
yeah, I don't think we should close any doors. I recognize it's going to be difficult, and I don't think you should close any door whatsoever to making this happen and happen the way we really want it to happen. And if it turns out we can't quite get there, then we'll deal with that when the time comes. But I think we need to go for the right approach to dealing with the public health and the health of the lake itself. That's how you got this in front of you, was with the Health of Higgins Lake Committee, and that's what we're thinking. So
what's our next step?
To the next meeting, I guess, I mean.
We gotta. Get it late.
Yeah, it was a little late.
Yeah, but okay, so you review this now. We just had a discussion about, okay, let's do something shorter, let's not do something shorter, or let's do this, or can't get in, we need more information, we can't get in more information until the future. Sometime. So any comments, draft our own stuff, go with.
I'm not trying to speak for you, but it sounds to me like maybe we take one more stab at this, Tom's drafted his own and we've now kind of went through this and reconvene and at least try to come closer to taking this to where it is we want it. And then maybe the following meeting, then maybe have the health department come in after, maybe we can even give them that draft at that point before they come in and let them. I'd like to hear her perspective on this again.
How would you like to have her, listen to what she has to say?
So, but I think the next meeting might be too soon because I think we're still trying to digest what we've got here, so. That's my thought, or whatever it's worth.
Well, Brad, you mentioned about meeting.
Special meeting, yeah, I mean, I threw that out there a few weeks ago, but I don't.
You're saying anything.
No, I'm just saying if we. I don't think we're ready to have her come in here if we haven't.
Right, I agree with you.
Yeah, we're not,
Just to
yeah.
come through, at least come to some conclusions on some of this stuff, but I think it's 10 o'clock and we're all tired.
Yeah,
So we need at least one meeting, whether it's next month or next week, but before we can. Probably have her come and visit.
Yeah, my thinking just was, we're so busy with this master plan right now. I was thinking devote a meeting just for this topic, but I'm open to whatever's best for everybody.
I don't expect this to come up to the township board for quite some time. I don't know, they aren't expecting, they're not trying to put I'd rather do it once and do it right. I know maybe you'd like to have it done in a month, but I don't think
No,
that's.
it's not me. I want it done right. I don't-
Yeah, so, I mean, if this takes us another several months, that's.
Well, we used to meet once a month anyway, then we switched to every other. Meet every.
I mean, do you ever, you guys do a work session with the township. I mean, we do a thing where we're not having a formal meeting. We're simply working on some language for it. I don't know. I'm
But
just thinking.
It still has to be a public
Yeah,
session.
yeah, but it
But-
could be a public meeting, but we're just trying to draft some of this stuff. Just to meet.
Right.
Single. Have a meeting for.
Single item.
Good
Agenda.
I mean, if you did say, I personally, I'm in no rush to do this stuff and stay on a regular meeting schedule and don't make an extra meeting just for this. Do it, but if you did, we talked about getting. Yeah. We had a meeting on the 11th. When the normal
Second Thursday.
yeah, second Thursday. We could do two things in that. One, just kind of consolidate our stuff inputs from the master. And two, do two halves of it. First half is to everybody review the master plan stuff, and then the next half is to review.
I mean, and even if that's rushed, I'm more thinking of a special meeting. Wouldn't have to be now. It could be a August special. Meeting,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be right now, but which might even be better. Give us more time to think through this a little bit. But I just think the time devoted to putting this together would be important.
I can usually get Taylor to a meeting within 2 weeks, she'd need that kind of time to carve out 4 hours for your meeting. So
She okay to come?
I don't know, probably. I would bet so.
What do we want to have when she's here? Do we want to have a draft in some type?
I think that if you review these between my draft, your draft, and consolidate one and get me that, I'll get it to her and let her look it over with her people, and she will respond with comments and come here and start to discuss them, line by line. And she'll tell you what she thinks about. One thing she'll tell you is, well, we've already been down that road, is that it's the inspections are the important part, and getting that all done and getting that data, that's where she'll land. But
Maybe
she'll
that's
certainly
the
answer your
effort
questions.
then, just to get that together.
Get,
The
Get-
inspection piece, how that's gonna work.
yeah. Well, yeah. That's where I've sat for quite a while, is I'd like to see inspections prior to the rest of it. That personally, that's what I think is the best way to handle it. And, but how, does it become, like we said, is it two ordinances? And I don't think so. Is it one split up into two pieces? And, you gotta comply with, all the data, get that piece of it done, and then go, and then in stage 2 kicks in, for the enforcement piece, maybe. But I don't think it needs to be two ordinances. I think it needs to be one that we deal with. So
Next regular meeting. Ben will be back.
That's
So
fine.
If we could just,
If we do what we're starting to do, follow all of our comments. And July 9th shouldn't be a 3-hour meeting with McKenna, because we
Right.
should have filtered through whatever it is we want to get put in here or change. So
Just schedule it for the July.
could-
Yeah, we can do
we
that.
could
That's
then,
fine.
we should have this memorized by then.
And that's only really 6 weeks away, right? I mean,
Right.
Yeah, it's not that far.
it's not that far.
Yeah, June didn't really work.
Okay, so that'll be fine. If we think we need another time after that, we can do that.
so we'd have all our basically comments or draft stuff for the 9th,
Mm-hmm.
and then give it to Jim after that to give to Taylor, or. And-
yeah, I'd be glad to.
Pretty aggressive to get it. Yeah.
That would put
Yeah.
us not having Taylor in here till sometime in
August,
August.
yeah, that's what, which is a special
yeah,
meeting just for
yeah.
that.
Maybe, yeah, maybe
And
that's.
or any ancillary stuff from the master plan.
I created the draft thing I labeled. Or please. Basically their ordinance. You guys want to go through it on your own? Mark it up.
I already did, because I thought it was, I thought it was.
That's what I thought too.
But
When you go to.
but there's issues in here about, the checklist for an inspection and stuff that we've still got.
Just a word file I sent you.
Well, it can be done with track changes in Microsoft Word. And everybody could do their different.
You could take, save both those documents and have one of your AI components analyze and combine the two of them, make a third document. It takes somebody about 10 minutes to do that. And that would go light years ahead of trying to sit down and looking at the two of them side by side, because it'll bring them all together for you. And that's, you can't count on it being gospel, but I tell you what, it's a great start. It's a good something to start reviewing.
Send it to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be our stuff.
Yeah.
Do that, yeah.
I got a subscription. Anybody's used that.
So that's a good one. And I've got Perplexity. Who knows? I don't know. They're all interesting.
The insight that AI can. I got 4 pages of corrections, not just typos, but inconsistencies in the plan.
I mean,
I was surprised at how.
So how'd you format your question?
I just took the document, put it in the plot and said, I'd like you to prove this and also tell me if there's any inconsistencies in the.
Well, that's what I'm asking you. What was your question?
Yeah, you
To get
gotta
it to
ask me
react.
the question.
Because if you don't ask the question right, it
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
The last one I did, I spent about an hour probably putting together 3 or 4 paragraphs on what it was I was expecting it to send back to me. And I was dumbfounded what I got back. I just like, holy cow, it's just amazing. So, and then it'll do that to these two. This is right up its alley for, comparing these two documents for sure.
But the queries are always I mean,
Yeah,
the guy do the
query's the key.
yeah, the research stuff with he uses about a dozen or so for medical studies now, and he's been cranking out op-ed stuff for every other day, essentially major things. And he goes through an iterative process, and sometimes these are, certain ones are good in some areas, and then certain he compares them all and stuff. Claude's been a good one, but I mean, you can build a query if you give it more than just take this document, that document, put it there.
Yeah.
Right.
Put a couple paragraphs in, about or sentences about you looking for this, you want this, kind of like the master plan. Hey, you could even feed the master plan stuff into that.
Yep.
The draft is okay. Here's our general, community consensus stuff as a background, and then tie that in there and have a couple other, bullets you put, run it, and then maybe tweak it after you run that. And
You want to combine and see what you get?
I will do it when I come back to work
Is that later tonight?
next Tuesday. Monday. I'm supposed to be fishing at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, better sleep fast.
In Empire.
Oh, man. Better really sleep fast.
I'm not going now.
Do you have anything you want to report?
Oh. As the hours up and running, I will tell you that was surprising is that there was not, we have a limit of 80. I don't think we've got 40 issues.
Have you got many since the initial day or is it?
we had
Today,
it was 34 the next.
Okay.
And we had 5, 1, 2, 4, 6.
What is the timeline until?
Through the summer, yeah.
End of August?
For applying, but they're gonna let age. More.
Have they started screening them?
Yeah, it's issued. Was issued. Something.
Do we have a record?
she does. I'm not her supervisor for that. She's my deputy, but she works for Muslim. She's doing that stuff, but we communicate. But there's been some interesting developments,
But this year, there are no changes. So this year, like.
yeah, this year you
This year it's
can
no
do, you
worse.
can continue on, but there's been some issues with deed restrictions that have popped up. There's at least 2 that I know of that their septic systems are severely under below the standard, even at the health department standards. And
Did they keep those applications in though? Are they going to change their septic systems?
one of them, they're giving them one of them has a 500-gallon tank, meets the 50% rule.
They're all good.
There is one, but 3 bedrooms, a 200-gallon tank. 200 doesn't meet any standards, so. Anyways, that's gonna be an interesting, but I'm surprised that
That's why
they ease.
I think that the septic is the right solution for us.
Okay, so our next regular meeting would be July 9th. It says 8th on my agenda, so that was a mistake. It's the 9th. And you're gonna get me your thoughts on the master plan by the 10th.
Is it only on the implementation table or just on the entire draft?
Whatever you want to.
Anything.
Yeah, she said anything, and I mean,
That's what I understood, but then at the end, she said like, but the emphasis on the implementation table, so.
Yeah. Anything.
Okay.
See something.
See something.
Don't
do something.
put it down. I mean, it's
Say something.
okay, motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn. I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
For coming.